Introduction to the Divine Dragon River. A student from an ordinary residence in the Dragon Realm accidentally got an egg, and his life was completely changed from then on. Later, he embarked on a journey of 3,000 worlds. Dragon Clan Origins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Tianlai College stands on the sunny side of Tianlai Mountain in the northeast of Shenlong City, the capital of the Dragon Realm. It is a prestigious comprehensive school with high educational quality ranking in Shenlong City and even the entire Dragon Realm. The age range of school students ranges from newborn babies to adult graduate students, so the entire school has over 100,000 students, mostly from the Dragon Kingdom royal family, nobles, and officials. But on this day, the originally bustling school seemed somewhat quiet. In a large self-study room of the East Library of the school, there sat a clean and handsome little boy who was vigorously writing on his homework book with a pen. There is also a pile of completed exercise books and several clearly flipped history books on the desktop. Jiang Lu. Just as the little boy was immersed in the ocean of learning, a cry came from outside the door, breaking the tranquility of the scene. What's up? Huchungxio. The little boy raised his head and looked at a tall and strong male student entering the study room. He whispered, then lowered his head to look at his homework. You haven't gone home or gone out to play this 10-year vacation, have you? Asked the male student named Hu Chunxiao. My parents are not at home, what can I do when I go back? There's not much I want to go out to play. I only have a 10-year vacation for 3 months, so I think it's more practical to complete some subject assignments during this time. The student, known as Jiang Lu, replied without looking up. I usually have 1 day off for 10 days, 3 days off for a month, 10 days off for a season, and 1 month off for a year. Not only you, but I also think it's better to study. However, reading 10,000 books and traveling 10,000 miles is not enough. It's still important to combine knowledge and action. In the past 2 months, I have traveled to many places where historical events have occurred. Although many places are now only relics, understanding historical events on site is definitely more profound than reading books. Hu Chunxiao said with a positive expression. The talent of Hu University is talented and intelligent. Judging from your condition, you should have gained a lot from your travels. My brain is stupid, so I can only spend more time studying hard and strive to complete my theoretical credits as soon as possible, so I can take practical courses. Jiang Lu replied helplessly. Are you still stupid? In just 20 years, I have basically completed 200 years of theoretical course credits. Not only do I not slack off at school, but I also ask my family to help me open a small stove for tutoring in college. I can't keep up with your learning progress. After listening to Jiang Lu's words, Hu Chunxiao was clearly indignant. Why compete with me, a talented student from Hubei University? I am just a long-term resident student, and it is not as convenient for me to enter and exit school as your regular students during my studies. I just want to finish my studies early, obtain my graduation certificate, and find a 9.5 job outside to live a peaceful life. Jiang Lu said, his expression couldn't help but darken. Jiang Lu didn't say it on his lips, but he was very eager to go home in his heart. But I may not believe it. Jiang Lu is now 25 years old, but he was sent to the school's daycare department from birth and transferred to his current study department at the age of 5. In the past 25 years, except for a few occasional visits to the commercial street at the school gate during school holidays, I have basically stayed inside the school. He has no idea where his home address is or what his parents look like. But he only knew that he was born into a branch of the dragon noble Jiang family, and his father Jiang Changxiao was an official. My mother, Hai Meigui, was born into the noble family of the dragon clan with the surname Hai. Before he was born, he had 2 older brothers, both of whom died prematurely in the lightning disaster at the age of 500. The Dragon School adopts a credit-based teaching system, as long as students take enough credits. The theoretical duration arranged in the teaching syllabus is 200 years, and the practical travel duration is also 200 years. According to this learning syllabus, ordinary students can easily complete it. And the remaining 100 years before the thunderbolt disaster are disasters that occur every 500 years of preparation. After the disaster, even if one reaches adulthood, they can still graduate smoothly. So Jianglu wants to finish the theoretical courses early and save time for preparing for the 500-year disaster. As for the practical travel courses, they are relatively rich. You can travel around, find jobs for practice, conduct scientific research, and even join the military to fight. Anyway, starting early can also lead to ending early. Hu Chunxiao didn't want to pay attention to the river flow, so he sat across from it and started reading a history book on the table. He is of the same age as Jiang Lu and belongs to different classes in the same class. Their academic performance and talent are among the top in their grade, so they naturally intersect. Hu Chunxiao was born into the noble family of the Dragon clan, with the surname Hu. His father was Wang Shang and his mother was a daughter of the Dragon clan royal family. Therefore, due to his superior family conditions and innate intelligence, he naturally had high self-esteem. But I dare not underestimate Jiang Lu, my usual competitor in learning. Instead, I consider myself a close friend and often come to Jiang Lu to exchange learning experiences and explore problem-solving methods. TSK, such a great vacation. There are still people who don't go out to play and instead hide in the study room to study. I don't think they are good students, they should be stupid students. Oh, there are actually more than one. Jiang Lu and Hu Chunxiao were studying and reading under their breath when an elderly woman's faint laughter came from the door. Hello Teacher Tian. Jiang Lu and Hu Chunxiao heard the sound and knew that the person coming was the respected old teacher Tian Yin from the school. They immediately stood up and saluted the old woman who walked in. Tian Yin is said to have lived for millions of years and is a treasure of the school. However, she is amiable and approachable, and is deeply loved by other teachers and students. Tian Yin waved her hand and asked the two of them to give up. She sat in the chairs next to them, looked at the history book on their table, and smiled, saying, I turned out to be two top students in grade 251. No wonder they don't rest during holidays. The self-study room is usually quiet, and today, just the two of you are allowed to do whatever you want. The river and lake expressed their gratitude immediately at spring dawn. Tian Yin looked at the history book on the table and said, How about today I test your mastery of historical knowledge? Jiang Lu and Hu Chunxiao both nodded in agreement. Jiang, could you first talk about the origin of our dragon tribe in this world? Tian Yin smiled and looked at the river. Before the endless cataclysm, our ancestors, along with other spiritual ancestors, lived in another universe. At that time, their universe was about to face ultimate destruction. Therefore, the great power of the spiritual ancestors, who had spent countless years, built an incredibly huge and hard spaceship before the arrival of the destruction. They broke through the endless barriers in the universe and arrived in the space we now live in. However, the thickness and hardness of the cosmic barriers are unimaginable, and even spaceships that have been prepared for countless years cannot be broken through. In the end, it was the great power of the ancestors who converted all their spiritual power into spaceship capabilities, and finally broke through the wall in the last moment. The river has already turned its back on this history. Although we successfully broke through the wall in the end, almost all the great powers fell, the spaceship also disintegrated, with only a few lifebuoys intact. At that time, the lifebuoy where our dragon clan was located was also fortunately preserved. However, the storm caused by the wall breaking and the spaceship explosion could tear the lifebuoy at any time. In a critical moment, Dragon Ancestor, who was still the captain of the youth guard squad at that time, accompanied by 7 teammates, disregarded personal safety and walked out of the lifebuoy, dividing into 4 directions to search for places where our clan members could take emergency shelter. As a result, Dragon Ancestor discovered the entrance to our current dragon realm and placed our clan members here, avoiding the waves of subsequent storms. And let our ethnic group continue to this day. Jiang Lu continued to answer the question. Tian Yin smiled slightly and said to the two people, Zhang's answer just now was very good. So, which one of you can talk about? What other historical questions can be extended from the answer just now? After all, the most basic history of this dragon tribe can be said by anyone who has seen or studied it. However, as a competitor in learning, Hu Chunxiao did not want the river to continue to play. He quickly took over the conversation and said, Teacher, let me answer. The dragon ancestor and 7 teammates mentioned by the river just now did not actually have names, and each person was referred to by numerical codes. However, because the dragon tribe has too many people, the code numbers are relatively long and easy to confuse, making it difficult to communicate in emergency situations. Therefore, at that time, the dragon ancestor divided the 8 people into 2 rows and 4 columns. Each column was numbered with rivers, lakes, and seas, and searched in one direction. The search direction of dragon ancestor at the forefront is south, standing on the left side of the first row, hence it is called Jiangnan left. His teammate on the right is Jiangnan right, and his teammate on the back is also Heshi left, and so on. Later on, during the Alliance of All Spirits, according to the advice of the divine race, cars follow the same track, books follow the same text, quantity follows the same balance, and customs follow the same customs. The dragon clan introduced surnames, and the dragon ancestor and his people took Jiang as their surname and Nanzhua as their surname. Due to his contributions to the dragon clan, the dragon ancestor was revered as the first dragon lord by the entire dragon clan, and his family became a royal family, and the other 7 teammates also took rivers, lakes, and seas as their surnames, taking Nanyu, Shizhua, and others as their surnames. Due to their early achievements, the dragon ancestor established the Dragon King's court and entrusted them with important responsibilities, gradually becoming the later aristocrats of the dragon clan. New Talent Competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Tian Yin nodded in agreement with Hu Chunxiao's answer. Next, teachers and students discussed history such as the Alliance of All Spirits, Dragon Clan festivals, internal rebellion in various realms, and rebellion of the Demon Clan. They also discussed topics such as exorcism of all spirits, and rebellion of the demon dragon from the realm, through a Q&A session. As a former practitioner, Tian Yin couldn't help but shed tears. After Tian Yin controlled her emotions and wiped away her tears, she gradually regained her calm expression. She quickly changed the topic when she saw herself losing her composure. The 2 students do have a good grasp of history and can integrate it. 10 years later, it will be the once.in.a.century freshman qualification competition. You can take a look at the competition rules and prepare well when you have time. With your qualifications, you can definitely stand out in the competition. Especially Jiang, who can complete 200 years of course credits in 20 years, besides hard work, his intelligence and qualifications are definitely not bad. Even though I have seen the wonder of completing 200 years of theoretical course credits in 2 years in countless years. New Student Qualification Competition. Jiang Lu expressed a puzzled expression after listening. He usually buries his heart in a pile of old papers. Although he has heard of the freshman qualification competition, he is not very familiar with it. Jiang University students don't know about the freshman qualification competition. It's unlikely, right? Hu Chunxiao asked with some confusion. Tian Yin also looked at the river with confusion, because as a young student under the age of 100, this new student qualification competition can be considered a significant opportunity to change one's life experience. Jiang Lu smiled awkwardly and said, I am usually busy taking credits, so although I usually pay attention to other information, after all, there are various types of competitions in school, and I probably know the names, but I haven't really delved into them. Tian nodded and said, "After all, one mind cannot be used twice. If you don't understand, it's normal. Let me briefly explain to you too. This new student qualification competition is actually a competition in our Dragon world to select various qualifications or top talents. Although the final ranking will be determined based on the score of the competition, these winners not only have material rewards, but also can be awarded equivalent official status by the Dragon Court. That is, when they reach adulthood, they can hold management positions without official status without the entrance exam. If they join the army in the future, they don't need to be ordinary soldiers and can directly serve as captain positions. But more often than not, there will be experts from various fields present to watch the competition, and students who meet the qualifications or talents in their main areas of study or cultivation will be directly accepted as disciples or students. And formal competitions are usually directly handled by the Dragon Clan Elder's House, presided over by the Executive Elder. If there are many top qualified contestants or particularly outstanding contestants, they can even attract the 4 elders of the story to watch, so they are seen as the first race for the new dragon race to change their destiny. Jiang Lu was still quite surprised after hearing this. After all, he thought that the ordinary school competition was actually a competition of the entire Dragon Clan. How many people would participate in the Dragon World competition? Jiang Lu suddenly thought of the population base of the Dragon Clan and couldn't help but ask. Tian smiled and said, "Indeed, this competition is so important that there are definitely many people who want to participate, so the quota for participants in this competition is based on a distribution system. For example, Artina Academy, as one of the top universities in the Dragon Realm, has 10 spots each time. This is the school with the most recommended spots among all participating schools. In some regions and lower-level vassal states, there may only be one recommended spot for one region or one vassal state, and there may even be areas where several regions or vassal states share one spot. Although it is the school with the most recommended spots, after all, comparing every 100 years is equivalent to only one spot every 10 years. In addition, the school occasionally admits some fully exempt students with excellent qualifications or talents, so these 10 spots are obviously more monks than meat." Jiang Lu calculated in his heart and immediately thought of the difficulty of the competition. "Yes," Tian said to Jiang Lu without any surprise. "So our school will organize a spot selection competition 6 months before the global competition, and select 10 spots for the competition within the school. During the selection competition, some experts from Longqing Prefecture and even surrounding areas will come to watch on site. Participants who meet their requirements will also be admitted as apprentices or students in advance." Tian paused and continued, "I often hear Kaijima from the Ministry of Medicine praise your medical talent. In the entire Dragon Realm, except for the medical talents of retiring and returning home, most of them are in Longqing Prefecture. So when you can showcase your medical talent in the school selection competition, the probability of being accepted as a disciple or disciple by the medical talents is very high." Jiang Lu humbly replied, "It was teacher Kai who falsely praised the disciple. However, the disciple did have some ideas of using a teapot to cure the world and save people. If there is a chance to become a doctor in the future, it would be the best." At this moment, Hu Chunxiao, who had been silent beside her, spoke up and asked, "Teacher Tian. In the past, in every school selection competition, were there other rewards besides selecting 10 contestants from the entire field?" Tian nodded and said, "Yes, in order to increase everyone's enthusiasm for participating in the competition, the school will not only select 10 contestants, but also an additional 90 winners, forming 100 people, to reward various high-quality learning supplies and resources. In addition, according to each person's strengths, they will be divided into several elite classes, which will be 1.1 tutored by senior teachers in the school for the remaining years of study. Of course, there are other unpredictable rewards for outstanding contestants in the selection process." Tian also talked about some matters related to the new student qualification selection competition, answered questions from Jiang Lu and Hu Chunxiao, and left the self-study room. Hu Chunxiao saw that it was getting late and bid farewell to the river to play basketball on the court. The river in the self-study room is full of new student qualification selection competitions. After all, as long as you can perform well in the school selection competition, your life goals for the second half of your life may be successfully achieved. As Tian Yin said, Jiang Lu can complete 200 years of course credits in 20 years, and his intelligence and qualifications are absolutely not inferior. After thinking for a while, Jiang Lu packed his homework and study materials and left the self-study room. I went to the still-open fruit shop on campus and bought a few red crystal fruits. I went to the living area of the nursing department to visit his former caregiver, Aunt Chui. Aunt Chui used to be an obstetrician nurse. After getting older, she applied to be transferred to the nursing department to care for infants and young children. Since Jiang Lu was first sent to the nursing department, she has been taking care of her. Therefore, Jiang Lu is relatively close to her and often visits her to listen to her opinions and suggestions on her life and studies, in order to make up for the absence of her parents. When Jiang Lu informed Aunt Chui about the new student qualification selection competition he heard today, Aunt Chui also encouraged him to participate. She believes that even though Jiang Lu's talent and aptitude are not top-notch, they are still among the best in their class. Getting some great attention in the selection competition, even becoming one of the 10 contestants is possible. But Aunt Chui also warned Jiang Lu that the number of successful candidates in the final selection was limited, and the school had so many students with some backgrounds. There have been many cases in previous years where students who have the potential to compete in the entire competition were secretly stumbling by other contestants in the selection process, ranging from being forced to withdraw from the selection process to losing their lives. So scary, doesn't the school care? Although Jiang Lu has inferred from various historical events, he has learned that there will definitely be some people behind the scenes doing some small moves and using some shameful means in the selection of this popular competition. It still endangers life's safety and is shocking. Management. The school will naturally intervene in blatant methods of harming others, but may turn a blind eye to sneaky actions. I guess the school may think that people who cannot even avoid other people's hidden schemes still lack qualifications. Moreover, even if they end up on the list of participants in the entire competition, they cannot rest assured, and the hidden schemes behind them may become even more intense. Chui Gu sighed and suddenly thought of something, saying seriously to the river, "Our dragon clan, among all the spirits and tribes, is considered physically strong, but we face disasters that happen every 500 years. Similarly, it is necessary to prepare carefully in advance and cross the calamity with fear. The probability of falling is not lower than that of other spiritual tribes. If we want to live long, we must go against the sky. Our dragon tribe, currently the second strongest tribe after the divine tribe in the 3000 world, relies not only on our own rough skin and thick flesh, but also on continuous fighting and honing. The dragon tribe suffered some damage to its vitality during the dragon-demon cataclysm, 10,000 years ago, resulting in a significant reduction in its population. Looking for the book Garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com, but after 10,000 years of recuperation, not only has it replenished its population, it has become overcrowded, but the fighting spirit of the tribe has long been abandoned. If there is another dragon-demon shock or invasion by the demon tribe, there may be a risk of the tribe's demise. So you can't expect others to be kind to you, but rely on your own strength to break down others' threats. Jiang Lu pondered over Aunt Chui's words and respectfully bowed to her, saying, "Xiao Lu understands." Chui Gu looked at the river and asked, "Do you know why our dragon clan is divided into the divine dragon clan, the true dragon clan, and the ordinary dragon clan?" Jiang Lu pondered for a moment and replied, "The divine dragon clan was developed from the royal family of the dragon ancestor, 7 aristocrats and other powerful aristocrats. They formed the ruling class and, in order to highlight their status, formed the concept of the divine dragon clan. The true dragon clan, on the other hand, is the intermediate force of the dragon clan. They are not only an important part of various social classes and accept the rule of the divine dragon clan, but also exert their creative power in the development process of the dragon clan. On the other hand, the all-dragon clan is composed of the lower class, lacking the environmental conditions and resources for their own development, ultimately becoming the weakest group of our clan. Cui Gu shook her head and said, "Actually, you haven't talked about the main point yet. The predecessor of the divine dragon clan was a guardian like the dragon ancestor and his comrades. They were physically strong and, after gaining power, did not avoid losing power. Therefore, they relied on constantly increasing their own strength to maintain their rule, and naturally became stronger and stronger. The true dragon clan and the fan dragon clan also evolved from their social status over a long period of time." Jiang Lu nodded respectfully and said, "I know my aunt said these things because she wants me to understand that only by constantly becoming stronger can I not be afraid of future difficulties." Aunt Cui nodded and said, "Go back and prepare well for the new student qualification selection competition." Class Trouble. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After bidding farewell to Aunt Cui, Jiang Lu returned to his dormitory. Speaking of a dormitory, it is a pigeon cage room that is half a meter long, half a meter wide, and less than a meter high. The walls, roof, and floor are all made of green steel rock. A sturdy stone material that is soundproof, heat-insulating, and blocks spiritual power. It is also the main material for most buildings in the Dragon Realm. There is a grass mat on the ground, and there is a hidden compartment under the mat. There is a regular treasure bag that the school will distribute to every student. This treasure bag looks small, just the size of a purse, but the space inside is 1,000 times the actual volume. When used in daily life, touch the space change function of the treasure bag to store daily necessities and learning materials. The treasure bags of Jianglu are quite shabby, with only a few sets of clothes issued by the school, including those worn when I was a child. Not many study materials and books, a few prizes from school knowledge competitions or student commendations, and a few dragon bead coins that are the currency of the dragon world and the source of spiritual energy. The whole room is too small and can only be used for meditation and rest. If you really want to lie down, you can only choose the diagonal of the room, so except for resting at night, students, including Jiang Lu, basically won't stay in the dormitory. Note. In this article, 1 zhang equals 10 feet, 3 feet equals 1 meter, 1 li equals 500 meters. Jiang Lu is aware of the hidden risks involved in the new student qualification selection competition. Before finally registering for the competition, it is best to be cautious and not reveal anything, otherwise there is a possibility that he may not have participated in the competition and he is already a confused ghost. In the following month, Jiang Lu continued to study in the self-study room during the day, rested in the dormitory at night, and occasionally visited Aunt Cui, which was completely the same routine as usual. The first day after the end of the 10-year leave is considered the beginning of the new semester of the school. Jiang Lu and other classmates came to the fixed classroom of their class, waiting for the homeroom teacher to give routine lectures on precautions and assign tasks. Jiang Lu followed his usual routine and arrived at the classroom early. He sat at a table in the middle of the first row and entered a state of learning on his own. As the number of people gradually increased, the classroom also became lively, and many students gathered together to chat and share interesting holiday stories. Some students also took out the delicious food they brought from home and shared it with others to taste. Although they are classmates, due to different course choices in daily life, many students are not familiar with each other and can only rely on this type of class meeting to get to know other classmates who are on their way to work. Jiang Lu, as a study maniac, never actively interacts with his classmates, so he turns a deaf ear to the excitement of others and only focuses on reading books and doing exercises. Jiang Lu does not socialize with others, but as a top student, he is still well known to many students. In addition to being clean and handsome, she also receives some attention, and occasionally classmates come up to greet her. Although Jiang Lu has no intention of making friends with others, basic etiquette still needs to be followed. Whenever classmates come up, Jiang Lu still greets them with a smile and exchanges a few words of holiday life calmly. However, in no time, a slightly round-faced and chubby boy sat by the side of the river and helped the river to greet the people it had greeted. This person's name is Luo Hao, and he is the young master of the Luo family, the king of Longqing Prefecture. 2 years ago, one night, feeling dull and bored at school, I sneaked out of the school to go shopping. When I returned, I was caught by a school patrol team besieging and arresting a student who had stolen from the school. Luo Hao was also lucky. The patrol team members who were originally guarding his secret entrance and exit were chasing a student who had sneaked out, so they gave Luo Hao a break and immediately ran away all the way. However, the rush at night immediately caught the attention of the patrol team, and personnel were immediately dispatched to surround him. At this moment, Luo Hao saw that there were still lights on in the self-study classroom and rushed straight towards the classroom. At that time, Jiang Lu was studying all night in this classroom to prepare for a course selection exam the next day. Luo Hao burst into the classroom and saw the river flow. He immediately had an idea and took out the nectar that was originally used to refresh his mind. He came to the edge of the river flow and whispered, "Brother Lu. The school food store is closed at night. This is what I brought back to my dormitory. There has been a delay in time, please don't take it for granted." After speaking, Luo Hao stood by the riverbank. Meanwhile, members of the patrol team have also rushed in. "Are you the person who ran wild outside just now?" the patrol leader asked Luo Hao. Luo Hao took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, teacher. This is my classmate Jiang Lu. He has an exam tomorrow and is studying here tonight. He just asked me to buy him a bottle of refreshing nectar, but I found out that the school's food store has closed. So I went back to the dormitory to get a bottle. The delay on the way was quite long, so I ran a few steps for fear of affecting his studies." After saying this, I glanced at Jiang Lu again, afraid that he would reveal himself. Although Jiang Lu knew that Luo Hao suddenly used him as a shield, it was definitely not a good thing, but after all, he was a classmate. Without knowing the specific situation, he remained silent and glanced at the patrol team members before continuing his review. Although the leader of the patrol team felt that Luo Hao's words may not be credible, Jiang Lu still had some reputation as a top student. In addition to these aristocratic schools, it is common for ordinary students to curry favor with academic elites, and it is also common for the children of ordinary wealthy people to curry favor with the children of aristocratic officials. That night, the patrol team had already caught several students who had stolen from the school, so they didn't plan to investigate further. After nagging Jiang Lu Dao, they left with their people. The next day, 4 other students who were caught by the patrol team on the scene were invited by the school to have their parents. This type of top school in the Dragon Realm cannot tolerate security vulnerabilities in schools, and the family is still the parent. Sending children in not only aims to provide them with better growth resources, but also hopes that the children can earn face for themselves inside. The 4 people who were invited by their parents seem to have not been punished by the school, and they have not even mentioned what happened to the public. But among these 4 people, 1 was soon expelled from school by their family, while the other 3 had their inheritance rights as future family leaders revoked by their own family. After hearing that the 4 of them had left, Luo Hao couldn't help feeling scared about the situation that night. If you hire your parents after being caught that night, your outcome will never be much better, and it will also affect the status of your parents in the family. So since then, Luo Hao has actively transformed into a little fan brother of Jiang Lu and started to be his fan openly. Jiang Lu saw that he had no ill intentions, so he acted casually. Jiang Lu continued to read books in the classroom, and Luo Hao next to him was undoubtedly born into the Wang Shangji family. Regardless of whether he was familiar with the classmates who came to greet Jiang Lu before, he immediately got along well with them in just a few words. Suddenly, a group of people gathered around the river. At this moment, a petite figure suddenly squeezed out from the crowd and placed a clean cloth bag in front of the river. Jiang Lu. This is my grandmother's crispy cherry blossom cake. She asked me to bring it to you to taste. Jiang Lu looked up and saw a beautiful girl with a red glow on her face, which was the one in his class, He Sisi. Thank you, He Sisi, for helping me thank your grandmother. When he saw the other person bring him the crispy cherry blossom cake from home, he felt embarrassed to refuse, so he politely took it away. Just now, it was quite common for classmates to taste delicious food together, but a girl who took the initiative to bring delicious food to the boy immediately caused everyone to discuss it. He Sisi, why don't you give some crispy cherry cakes to Brother Sulphur when you bake them for Jiang Lu? Suddenly, a rough voice rang out on one side of the classroom. Jiang Lu turned to look at Jiang Fusher in his class, who was also born into the Jiangnan Right clan. However, his blood relationship was far apart, and without thousands of generations, it couldn't be related to him. He could be considered the head of a few thugs in the class. Who calls you rough skin and thick flesh? Miss, he only likes a little white face. As soon as Jiang Fushu finished speaking, there was a strange voice beside him. I heard that he Dajiao is almost exhausted. Look at her mother, she's so anxious that she's looking for a home for her granddaughter. What kind of eyes does the River family have? Even if they are starving, why did they pick a little white face that is not worth looking at? The voices that echoed on the side were clearly a group of people, and they all had ill intentions. Ji Sanpi, please keep your mouth clean. Luo Hao heard the other party secretly damaging the river flow and immediately stood up with a tang. Oh, you got it right. You have the ability to challenge your master against me and see how long he can hold on. The rough guy named Jiang Fushu sneered at Luo Hao. Zhaoshuyuan.com, why use an ox knife to kill a chicken? With your esteemed appearance, I, Luo Hao, will be enough to play with you. There's no need for me, Brother Lu, to come forward. Luo Hao didn't show weakness. Luo Hao. If you want to show off in front of your master, you also need to weigh your own weight. If you want to fight, I will play with you now. The person who was just called Ji Sanpi by Luo Hao took over the conversation. Jiang Lu frowned, thinking that he had no friction or conflict of interest with Jiang Fushu and his group on a regular basis. He suddenly found fault for no reason and definitely harbored evil intentions. Jiang Lu didn't want to talk to him, but in addition to being targeted by the other party, he also dragged He Sisi and Luo Hao into it, hoping that the other party would mercifully let him go. It's just wishful thinking. It's better to take the initiative to avoid falling out on others. However, it is absolutely not allowed to fight in the classroom, as it will violate school rules and lead to being unable to eat or walk around. Secondly, currently the number of people on the other side is significantly higher than ours, and once we take action, we will still be at a disadvantage. Having made up his mind, Jiang Lu stood up and said to Jiang Fushu, we need to compare who is good or bad. I see that you are sharp and cunning, so it's probably just a matter of words. After hearing this, Jiang Fushu clenched his fist with a snap sound and said fiercely, why don't you try my fist? Jiang Lu looked disdainful and said to Jiang Fushu, this is the classroom. Teacher Wei is coming soon, so you shouldn't want him to be the judge. After hearing this, Jiang Fushu pondered for a moment and asked, what kind of comparison do you think? Jiang Lu replied, there is a competition arena in school. After class, you and I will compete on point 1 in front of all the teachers and students to see who is not useful. After hearing this, Jiang Fushu immediately nodded and agreed. Then he said awkwardly, since you want to throw your face out so much, then I'll do it for you. Because of the name. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, on the side, He Sisi saw that Jiang Lu had caused trouble due to giving him a cake, so he quickly advised him to stop. After all, Jiang Lu studied well, which did not mean that fighting was okay. Especially for Jiang Fushu, a notorious thug in the class, He Sisi did not believe that Jiang Lu could physically confront him. Next to him, Luo Hao also hurriedly tried to dissuade him. After all, as a former, problem student, he knew that Jiang Fushu could become a gangster leader, and there should be some means. Other classmates who were originally surrounded by the river also advised the river. Birds of a feather flock together, and people flock together. These are basically students who tend to lean towards learning. They believe that playing the arena with thugs and underachievers is simply a matter of self-degradation, adding the contrast between Jianglu and Jiangfu's sulfur physique. It's like a lamb entering a tiger's mouth. Jianglu smiled and thanked everyone for their concern, looking confident. Jianglu just recalled several contacts he had with Jiang Fushu over the years, and felt that this person had always had targeted hostility towards him. He used to think it was the jealousy of bad students towards good students, but in recent years, other bad students have generally had an attitude towards Jianglu or other outstanding students, which is, well, water does not cross river water. It is difficult to understand situations like Jiang Fushu, and there should be reasons that other rivers do not know. So Jianglu wanted to take advantage of the arena competition and clarify the problem, so as not to keep a hidden thunder. And more importantly, Jianglu has basically completed his theoretical courses in school. As long as he completes the comprehensive theoretical exam in the middle of the year, he can put an end to his theoretical learning and enter the next stage of practice and travel. This is different from the situation where I stayed in school and had a basic worry-free safety guarantee. There are significant risk factors when practicing and traveling outside the school gate, especially before the arrival of the new student qualification selection competition. Safety is an issue that Jianglu has to consider. Other students may have some protection from their families, both inside and outside, but Jianglu believes that he doesn't even have his parents visiting him, so protection still depends on himself. So, using a ring competition to show that you are not a soft persimmon is also a good strategy. As for winning or losing, the school stipulates that only human forms of competition can be played on the arena, and students are not allowed to compete in dragon form. Therefore, even if injured, with the strong body of the dragon, it should not be too serious. This is also why the school agreed to set up the arena. And Jianglu's strategy is to trade injuries with Jiang Fushu on the arena. After all, currently everyone is not optimistic about him. As long as he can show that he is on par or even weaker than Jiang Fushu on the arena, then the goal of establishing power has basically been achieved. As it was already time, homeroom teacher Wei Qi stepped into the classroom at the 9th stroke of the school clock. This seemingly young and elegant homeroom teacher is said to be the youngest senior teacher in the school. Wei Qixuan quickly placed his name, then customary some precautions, and finally gave a notice for a spring outing. A month later, it will be the Warm Spring Festival. In order to relax everyone, the school organized a spring outing for all teachers and students in batches on that day. Our grade group was assigned to go to Zhuma Mountain Park, where the spring scenery is good. You can climb Zhuma Mountain, take a boat to stroll around Zhuma Lake, and even go on an adventure to the demon repellent cave. Whether you participate in the spring outing or not, the assistant class teacher instructed Lingli to register one by one. Wei Qi finished speaking and asked Lingli to register one by one. While Lingli was registering one by one, Luo Hao turned his head and asked Jiang Lu, "Brother Lu, you usually compete against time to study, won't you not go on this spring outing again?" Jiang Lu shook his head and said, "I participated this time, and now I have basically completed my theoretical class. As long as I take the mid-year comprehensive theoretical exam again, I will be ready. In the coming months, I still need to prepare for theoretical practice and travel. This spring outing is also a chance to leave school, go out and take a walk. It can be considered a warm-up, especially the exorcism cave, which is cleverly designed and even mentioned in history books. It happens to be a good time to go and see the real scenery on site." Luo Hao suddenly looked embarrassed and said, "I thought Brother Lu wouldn't go again this time. My great-grandfather just had a 500-year disaster a few days ago, and the family was happy. They celebrated it in the name of celebrating his birthday, and the time was set for the Spring Warmth Festival. I won't be able to go on a spring outing when I arrive, so I have to go home to celebrate his birthday. Your ancestors have successfully crossed the tribulation, which is certainly a great joy. Even if it's not a spring outing, you still need to take a leave to go back, right? Anyway, this stationed in Moshan Park is no longer the former military base. When the holiday comes, you can go and visit it yourself. Jiang Lu thought that Luo Hao was sorry that he couldn't go for the spring outing, so he quickly spoke out to comfort him. No, Brother Lu, that's not what I meant. I can't accompany you on a spring outing. I'm afraid Jiang Fushu and his gang will be against you during that time. Luo Hao quickly explained. Don't worry, this spring outing is led by Teacher Wei. With Teacher Wei's care for me, I estimate they will lend them another 100 courage, and they won't dare to be demons during the outing. Besides, I'm not that weak. I'll have to teach Jiang Fushu a hard lesson on the arena after class, Jiang Lu said with a relaxed expression. Since you have said that, Brother Lu, I can rest assured. However, you must have a strong defense against others. You still cannot relax your guard, Luo Hao said to Jiang Lu with some concern. Jiang Lu patted Luo Hao's shoulder and nodded at him with a smile, indicating that he would pay attention. After Lingli counted all the participants in the spring outing and announced the end of class, Ji Sanpi came to Jiang Lu and said, Jiang University, don't forget the arena competition with our sulfur brother. Jiang Lu didn't take the initiative to come to see Jiang Fushu, knowing that his mind was already beating drums. In this arena competition, Jiang Fushu was caught off guard, so as soon as class was over, Jiang Lu thought of a quick battle and a quick decision. Since the opponent sent someone to find him, he didn't have to go find the opponent himself. He immediately smiled and said to Ji Sanpi, why don't you lead the way? Then he lowered his head and ordered a few words in Luo Hao's ear, followed Ji Sanpi out of the classroom and walked towards the arena next to the school playground. A group of people in the class had already heard before the class meeting that Jiang Lu was going to compete with Jiang Fushu in the arena, and they all followed to see the excitement. He Sisi was among the crowd, but his face was full of worry. As a group of people marched forward in a grand manner, students from other classes who had already finished their classes learned about the situation and began to follow and watch the excitement. When they arrived at the arena, Jiang Liufei flew onto it and saw that there were already 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, surrounded by people, creating a dark atmosphere. At this moment, Jiang Fushu also flew onto the arena from the other side. At the same time, a middle-aged man wearing black work clothes also flew onto the stage, standing in the middle of the arena. It was the arena administrator that Jiang Lu had just instructed Luo Hao to invite. The manager said to the two of them, today, if you 2 lower-grade students want to compete on the arena, you must abide by the rules of the school's arena and remember to keep playing until the end. One side temporarily loses combat ability, falls off the arena, or admits defeat. After the game is over, the other side cannot take action again, otherwise I will intervene. Alright, you start. Jiang Fushu said to Jiang Lu. If you kowtow to me now and admit your mistake, take the initiative to admit defeat, I will spare you the pain of skin and flesh for the sake of our own families. Jiang Lu snorted coldly and said, don't waste your words here. Since I'm going to compete with you on the arena, I have a chance of winning. I just don't understand. I have no grudges against you in the past, and I have no grudges against you recently. Why do you target me everywhere? Jiang Fushui also snorted coldly and said coldly, targeting you everywhere. That's not your name yet. How could you use the word blue, while I can only use sulfur, Upon hearing this explanation, Jiang Lu was a bit surprised and said, what word is your name? Shouldn't you ask your father and ask me why? Humph, Jiang Fushu's face suddenly turned grim. My father originally named me after the 3-point water flow, but when he reported it to the clan to record the genealogy, the old guys said that the flow character was respected and I didn't use it, so they changed it to the sulfur character for me. My father is also the young head of our family, who usually manages most of the family's industry. I am his legitimate eldest son, and surprisingly, I don't even use the word Lu in my name. I originally thought that people who wanted to use the word Lu would have more respect for their status, but I didn't expect that you, like a dog or a cat, could use it. So I want to teach you a lesson and show those old people that even those with Lu in their names are not bad. Jiang Lu suddenly felt speechless. It turned out that the other party's target was because of their name. However, the Dragon clan has 4 noble surnames: rivers, lakes, and seas. According to the Dragon clan law, people who are not members of these 4 or 8 clans cannot change their surnames. However, it has never been mentioned which characters are noble, only that the names of the Dragon Court monarch, the Crown Prince, and the turbulent waves of the Dragon clan elder's house must be avoided. The other regulations regarding naming are that within the same family, there are no duplicate names within the 5 uniforms, and there are no other regulations. But I don't know when it started. The saying, noble name, has been circulating. That is, using characters with 3 dots of water for names is much more noble than using other radical characters. So generally, families begin to use characters with 3 dots of water for naming legitimate sons or descendants of significant contributors in the family. Moreover, for families with a large number of people, the power of naming is generally held by the elders of the family or the Presbyterian Council. The reason why Jianglu has this name is because his 6th-generation ancestor, the father of Gaozu, is called Jianglu. Before his fall, he left a will, and after his fall, when there is a legitimate son born in the 6th generation, he will use the name Jianglu. At that time, as a caregiver, Aunt Chui was curious about Jianglu's name. When Jianglu was sent to the school's childcare department, she asked Jianglu's father and later informed him. Now that we know the reason, in the arena, Jiang Lu can only follow the original plan and fight against Jiang Fushu quickly. Jiang Lu's fighting skills are learned from school fighting classes, which are usually elective courses for students over 100 years old. In order to obtain credits early, Jiang Lu applied for this course when his body grew to the height required for elective courses at the age of 20. Jiang Fushu, on the other hand, comes from a private tutor at home. Every time there is a holiday, Jiang Fushu always goes home to attend several hours of fighting classes. It can be said that the 2 of them are not very proficient in combat skills. However, when the 2 of them clashed, Jiang Fushu, who was originally supposed to take Jiang Lu with thunderous force, did not gain an advantage in the previous collisions and attacks with Jiang Lu. Instead, due to a mistake, Jiang Lu punched Jiang Lu hard in the face, causing his face to swell. In regular training, the trained martial artists do not resort to violence against him, but Jiang Lu does not have this taboo. Whenever he seizes an opportunity, he uses his strength to the fullest. At one point, there was a scene of Jiang Fushu being suppressed by Jiang Lu. More and more people gathered around the scene, with various mockery, screams, and shouts echoing one after another. Suddenly, an angry voice came from under the arena. Jiang Fushue, are you not drinking milk this morning? I bought all my living expenses with a 1.1 to 1 odds, and you won. You won't let me lose all my underwear, will you? Brother Dayeyes, you wouldn't have foolishly bought Jiangfu sulfur to win, would you? You don't know, this arena, this usually cowhide, sulfur brother, is completely suppressed by his name. Another voice sounded off the field. What, Brother Hongyu, do you know the inside story? Asked the person known as Brother Dayeyes. Jiang Fushu and Jiang Lu are both from the Nan Yu Jiang family. You said one uses flow with 3 drops of water, and the other is sulfur next to the stone character. Who are you saying is stronger and who is weaker? Those 2 people were close to the arena and spoke loudly, so naturally Jiang Fushu heard them. He couldn't help but feel angry when he saw someone expose his scar, and he didn't realize that his punches on the river had become a bit heavier. But Jiang Lu took advantage of Jiang Fushue's momentary distraction and flexibly dodged the opponent's attack, returning a punch that hit Jiang Fushue in the face. Jiang Fushue's cheeks felt a faint swelling. If you don't hit someone, you can't help but look. Jiang Fushu couldn't help but be extremely angry, but before the word death could be spoken, Jiang Lu had already relied on his flexible movements and dodged behind Jiang Fushu. He flew up and kicked him in the butt. Suddenly, Jiang Fushu's center of gravity became unstable and he fell on the ground, chewing on the mud. You! Jiang Fushu couldn't help but burst into flames with his eyes. He immediately bounced up from the ground and placed his hand on his sleeve with a poison dagger. He approached Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and prepared to fight against Jiang Lu relentlessly, never dying. Stop it! Suddenly, a loud shout came from a distance and landed on the arena like thunder, causing the river and a group of people on and off the stage to hum in their ears. Before everyone could fully understand, two figures had already landed on the arena in an instant. It was only then that the crowd could see the two clearly. One was a white-faced and elegant middle-aged man wearing a school senior management uniform, while the other was a slightly younger middle-aged man wearing a black armor from the security department. Many people know this middle-aged man in black armor, who is Niu Wu, the director of the school's security department. At this moment, Niu Wu stood behind another middle-aged person and introduced himself to everyone. This is Vice Principal Wu Tingli, who is new to the school to manage student moral education work. Everyone on and off the stage immediately bowed and saluted. Hello Principal Wu. Hello Director Niu. Wu Tingli waved his hand slightly to the crowd as a gesture of gratitude. On the first day of this new semester, I was fighting like a dog on stage. What kind of behavior is that? Wu Tingli sternly scolded Jiang Lu and Jiang Fushu. Principal Wu. According to school regulations, if students have minor conflicts, they can go to the arena to compete and compete. Look at Xiao Yi, the referee next to him, who is the arena administrator. If a student has excessive behavior, he will naturally take action to stop it. Before Jiang Lu and Jiang Fushu could reply, Niu Wu explained to the new vice principal. Since it's a competition, let's call it a day. I think you two have already had a lot of competition just now. If you don't hurry back to study, everyone else will be separated, Vice Principal Wu said angrily to the crowd. Jiang Liujian's expected plan had been achieved, and after Wu Tingli and Niu Wu finished a compilation, they jumped off the arena and joined forces with Luo Hao and others below. Jiang Fushu didn't dare to cause trouble. After bowing to Wu and Niu, he also left the arena. The onlookers below, seeing that there was no more excitement to watch, quickly dispersed as birds and beasts. The sadness of spring outing. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Luo Hao happily invited everyone to the cafeteria for a meal, but Jiang Lu did not refuse. A group of people gathered around the river and walked towards the school cafeteria, occasionally praising Jiang Lu's handsome actions and mocking Jiang Fushu's embarrassing demeanor. He Sisi was also among the crowd, happy as if he had won a big prize. The group quickly arrived at the elegant room of the school cafeteria and happily enjoyed a meal. Some people are happy, while others are worried. Jiang Fushu lost face today and didn't even eat food. He called his subordinates to the small stronghold he usually meets. Ji Sanpi was afraid that Jiang Fushui would vent his anger on them, so he quickly shared a plan to take action against Jiang Lu during his spring outing. Jiang Fushui's anger decreased slightly after hearing the plan, and he asked a few younger brothers to help him buy medicine and food. He then rented a room in the school guest house and started recuperating inside. However, Jiang Lu underestimated the power of Jiang Fushu's fist. As soon as he finished the arena, he was excited and did not feel any pain, but after finishing the meal, Jiang Lu felt waves of pain on his body. After Jiang Lu and others parted ways, they went to the school pharmacy with Luo Hao, bought some medicine, and returned to the dormitory to rest and heal their injuries. A few days later, Jiang Lu resumed the 3.1 life of dormitory, library, and cafeteria. However, in the library, besides reviewing theory, he began to borrow books on practice and travel. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the spring outing, and Luo Hao had already taken a leave the night before yesterday and was taken back home by his family. Jiang Lu, wearing a casual school uniform, arrived at the playground early in the morning. On the originally empty playground, there were several giant boats parked. Said to be made after the spaceship that broke the universe in the past, so they were called imitation spaceships. Jiang Lu arrived at the class gathering point, where many students had already gathered. Everyone was in groups of 3 or 5, chatting and laughing, looking relaxed. Jiang Lu also joined in and chatted casually with a few familiar classmates. As we were about to board the boat, a female voice came from behind. The river turned around and saw He Sisi wearing a casual school uniform. "I'm sorry, my classmate." "Hello." Jiang Lu politely greeted me. "Here you are." He Sisi handed a cloth handbag to Jiang Lu. "Here are some ordinary spiritual fruits and spiritual foods that can be eaten during the spring outing later." Jiang Lu awkwardly scratched his head because he noticed that everyone else was carrying food. "You gave me something to eat, so how can you eat it yourself?" Jiang Lu squeezed out a sentence after half a day, feeling his brain, which usually runs at high speed while studying, suddenly become dull. "Hee, there's more of mine here than yours, and this is for you." He Sisi shook the other cloth bag in his hand and said with a smile. "Oh, this is my first spring outing and I don't have any experience, so I won't hesitate to accept it," said the river, disturbing my head and awkwardly taking it over. When it was time to board the boat, He Sisi sat on the riverbank and chatted with the river from food to drink, from playing to singing, whatever herbs, weapons, and treasures he talked about. The journey was very easy. At the entrance of Zumishan Park, the river and classmates rushed in one after another. He Sisi pulled the river with the current and prepared to take a boat. Jiang said, "At this time, everyone is thinking about taking a boat and it will take a long time. However, there are not many people climbing Mount Ma. We can climb the mountain now and occupy a good viewing position to enjoy the scenery. After a while, all the people taking the boat will start climbing the mountain. Let's go down the mountain and take the boat, and we can stagger the flow of people." He Sisi thought this idea was good, so he followed the river to climb the mountain. Other people who had a good relationship with Jiang and he naturally chose to follow the river to climb the mountain when they saw the crowd rushing towards the lake. As the river said, when the group reaches the mountaintop, there are not many people on top, and they can occupy a good viewing spot. Looking into the surrounding area, the clouds roll and stretch, the flowers are red and the willows are green, and the water waves ripple. As expected, the scenery is picturesque. When the river and the group returned to the foot of the mountain, most of the people were already climbing, and they soon had their turn to take a cruise ship. A group of people boating on the lake, reciting poetry and writing lyrics, bathing in the spring breeze, feeling very comfortable. After the lake tour, the group found a piece of open space by the lake, took out a mat, and put all the food they brought on it. Then, they sat cross-legged around and began to feast on it. After the river and the group finished their lunch, the sun was already clear. After tidying up, everyone sat on the empty ground and chatted. Compared to that, students who are still climbing mountains are more hardworking, sweating profusely under the influence of exercise and temperature. Shortly in the afternoon, Wei Qi and Ling Lingli gathered the class members and informed the park that the entrance to the exorcism cave had been opened. Although this exorcism cave has already been opened, it needs to be applied for due to its complex interior. Wei Qi first explained the precautions, and then gave each person a distress symbol. This symbol was placed in their hands. If they encountered difficulties, they gathered their spiritual power in their hands and pinched the distress symbol. Spiritual power cultivation is a fundamental skill for the dragon and other spirits to cultivate. Although Jiang Lu and others are young, they started learning from the first lesson in the teaching department at the age of 5 and have been practicing for 20 years. It is still very simple to activate a talisman. After Wei Qi finished speaking, he led everyone to the entrance of the mysterious cave and entered in droves. The river flows with everyone into the mysterious cave, where there is a unique cave. At the entrance, only one person could bend down and pass through, and when they arrived inside, it suddenly became clear. It was a spacious hall several acres in size, with several luminous stones arranged regularly on the top. As far as their eyes could see, several passageways were opened on the wall of the hall, numbered in order. At this moment, Wei Qi commanded the members of the class and other members to gather in front of a young man dressed in scenic area work clothes and listen to him speak. The young man in the scenic area cleared his throat and said in a loud voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am Xiaoma, the administrator of Moshan Park. Yes, I am the horse stationed in Moshan. Welcome everyone to visit the exorcism cave. You are now in the A-shaped hall, which has a total of 88 caves." Then, everyone looks back at the rear passage. Each passage has 1 to 10 entrances that connect to the next hall, or some secret passages, small halls, dead roads, or even traps. So we have marked each passage or dangerous areas, and everyone should follow the entry and exit route map, not go to dangerous areas. The entire maze cave is located in the scenic area with the help of Longting. It took 100 years to explore to the current stage, which can basically be considered as understanding the mystery cave. However, according to some experts, there are still some hidden routes and spaces in the mystery cave, so currently only the first 20 hall areas are open. As for today, you only have half a day of sightseeing time. It is recommended that you go back as far as the 8th hall. At each hall and major intersection, there are staff members from our scenic area. If you have difficulties, you can contact our staff. If you encounter danger while traveling, you can use the distress symbol in your hand to seek help. After listening to the young man's introduction, the river randomly selected a passage to enter, and the people who had just followed the river also followed in. Wei Qi saw the class members walking in this direction and also followed in. Other people in the class, except for a few scattered ones, including Jiang Fushui, Ji Sanpi, and others, also followed Wei Qi into the room. Jiang Lu and others toured several routes along the way. This mysterious cave has open and hidden paths, upward and downward paths, dead ends, traps, and broken formations. There are also relics of ancient activities and broken text and images. It is a vast and diverse underground world, encompassing all kinds of phenomena. After strolling around for about an hour, the students who had come in were already scattered in small groups, but most of the students in the Jianglu class, except for a few who did not follow, walked together. At this point, some light appeared in the front channel. Wow! The first few people, upon seeing the scenery in the bright spot, immediately let out an exclamation and excitedly rushed in. When the river reached inside, it was discovered that it was a huge cave, covering an area of over 10 acres. It was filled with various dazzling crystals and glowing minerals, shining brightly, as if it were a fairy tale world. In the cave, there are not only scenic area staff, stone tables and benches for rest, but also several skilled painters who use special materials and brushes to quickly draw people and scenery, and they are lifelike. Some girls lined up to ask the speed artist to incorporate themselves and the scenery into the painting. Jiang Lu looked for a while, then sat on the chair next to him to rest, while some other boys also sat around to rest. At this moment, a boy with an average appearance approached the river and said, "Jiang, I just found a sparkling spot in the front passage. I don't know what it is. You are the best student in the class, knowledgeable. I wonder if you could go and take a look. Yi Lingling, can you explain it in more detail?" Jiang Lu looked at the person and saw that he was a classmate who usually stayed at home and didn't have many social circles. He was not sure if the other person was just asking him to go and see together, or if he had other purposes. Yi Lingling recounted the matter again, while Jiang Lu was still considering it. Suddenly, several male classmates gathered around and said, "Brother Lingling, what's there to discover? Let's all get involved together." Yi Lingling glanced at the river and repeated what had just been said. After listening to the words of the wild spirit, a few people pulled the wild spirit to take a look, and encouraged the river to go and take a look together. The river had no choice but to stand up. Yi Lingling hurriedly led the way ahead, followed by 4 or 5 classmates, and headed towards the passage. The river is not rushing or slow to follow. A group of people walked around 7 or 8 times, about 4 or 5 kilometers, and arrived at a fork in the road. They saw a passage marked as dangerous, with only one passage marked for one person to pass through. Everyone followed the wild spirit and walked sideways, then turned in a passage and saw a shining passage ahead. Here we are, it's ahead. The wild spirit pointed towards the glowing channel. Everyone walked forward and looked at the passage. This channel should be a dead end, and what shines at the entrance of the channel seems to be a magic array. Jiang Lu looked at it for a while and shook his head, saying, "This should be a magic formation. It may have existed a long time ago, or the scenic area may have intentionally set up a blocking magic formation to prevent anyone from entering unknown areas. This area is so big, why don't we take a separate look? What other discoveries do we have?" one person suddenly suggested. Jiang Lu thinks there shouldn't be anything else, otherwise the scenic area wouldn't have set up a danger zone nearby. A discovery was discovered within reach. So the river began to turn back, preparing to go to the cave where the crystal had just appeared and meet with other classmates in the class. "Jiang Lu, come and see what this is." The boy who just spoke suddenly shouted at Jiang Lu in front of the glowing array. Jiang Lu walked back in confusion and reached the front of the formation, but did not see any abnormalities. Then he looked at the boy with a skeptical expression and said, "Where?" "There, a little behind, there." The boy anxiously pointed to a place. The river gazed intently and found nothing different, with a suspicious expression on its face. At this moment, the boy turned back to look at the river and said, "Could it be an angle issue? Why don't you come to my position to see?" Jiang Lu muttered and changed his position with the boy, looking towards the position he had just looked at. "Let's go." Before Jiang Lu could even take a closer look, the boy suddenly pushed the river. The river couldn't defend itself and fell into the formation. Suddenly, a wave of pressure came from all sides, and the river felt unable to move. "Ha ha ha, Jiang Lu, in order to find a good place for you, I spent a lot of money to buy this trapped demon formation. You can stay inside well. By the way, I can't even see you from outside." Before Jiang Lu could react, Jiang Fushu's laughter could already be heard. Jiang Lu understood that he had been ambushed by Jiang Fushu, but the urgency of the delay was to quickly get out of trouble. But at this moment, he felt difficulty breathing and was unable to speak in the formation. At this moment, he suddenly thought of the distress symbol in his hand, and quickly activated his spiritual power. Fortunately, the spiritual power required for the distress symbol was not high. When the spiritual power reached his hand, the distress symbol made a crisp sound, indicating that it had been activated. Almost at the same time, Wei Qi, who was sitting in the crystal cave, suddenly jumped up from his seat, and then a flashing guide flew out of his sleeve. "Not good, someone is in danger." The talisman used was just sent to the river flow. "Teacher Ling. You stay here and keep an eye on your classmates. Go to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and I'll go find Jiang Lu." Wei Qi turned around and said to Ling Lingli, then followed the guide and rushed forward. "Ah, is the river in danger?" He Cece and the few people who had just followed behind the river were also surprised and quickly followed Wei Qi out. "What's going on? A person so careful in the river, how could they encounter danger?" asked a few students next to him in confusion. "Teacher Ling. Just now, the wild spirit seemed to have discovered something in the cave and brought the river over. There were 4 or 5 people who had just walked with them," a student whispered. "What? More than one person?" surprised Lingli. "Colleagues, there is a student in our class who is in danger. I need to go over and support Teacher Wei Qi. The students here, please help take care of them," said the leader of the other classes resting next to him. Ah, so serious. Let me go with you. Teacher Xiaofeng, please keep an eye on the students in our class and Wei Qi's class. The teacher of the neighboring class quickly caught up with Ling Lingli and went to help together. The staff of the scenic area who had been staying in the cave quickly came out to inquire about the situation. When they learned from the students that someone had sent a distress signal, they immediately summoned the Scenic Area Management Department to open the scenic area's 1,000-mile mirror and check the situation inside the cave. At the same time, two students wearing Tina Academy uniforms were walking side by side in a mysterious passage. Jia Jia, this cave has been developed and organized for hundreds of years. Are you sure there will still be treasures left? One person asked the other. Absolutely, Deputy Director Liu of the Security Department of the Scenic Area is my father's sworn brother. Last time we came to my house to drink with my father, we drank too much, and it was revealed. Jia Zink, we grew up together as iron brothers. Will I deceive you? Said the person who called Jia Jia. Mysterious Cave Shadow. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, that's good, otherwise we'll leave the main force and go deep underground. I always feel uneasy, Jia Zink said. Don't worry, I not only have a map of the mysterious cave, but also bring a few top-notch defense and escape treasures. When in danger, I always have more than enough to escape. Hey, look at something shining there. Jia Zink looked towards the direction Jia Jia pointed to and found that something seemed to be shining not far away. The two of them quickly ran over to see if the surroundings were normal, and then took the sword scabbard in their hands and flicked the spot of light. As the surrounding soil trembled with the light, the glowing thing revealed more true features. It seems like a weapon. Jia Jia used the scabbard as a lever and lifted up some of the exposed weapons. And Jia Zink on the side also quickly came up to help. In just 15 minutes, all the weapons were exposed, and Jia Jia picked them up and carefully examined them. This is a pointed gun made of pitch-black metal, with a height of about one person. Apart from the silver-white tip and black overall, it looks a bit strange and has some traces of time. This gun is indeed a treasure, we have found it. Jia Jia laughed happily. It's hard to say if it's a treasure, maybe it's a worthless weapon pulled down during the early development of the scenic area. Jia Zink couldn't help feeling a bit disappointed when she saw her gun being taken away by Jia Jia. I heard that divine weapons and magical tools have spirits, and they can understand the master's commands and start to change as they please. How about I give it a try? Jia Jia jokingly said to the pointed spear, make it smaller, make it smaller, make it smaller. To the surprise of Jia, the pointed spear slowly began to change and contract with Jia Jia's words, and soon became half-human tall. Really? Really? Really a divine weapon. It's a great creation, ha ha ha, Jia Jia laughed happily. Let's take a quick look, maybe there are other treasures around. Jia Zi saw that Jia Jia had a divine weapon, thinking that she was still empty-handed, quickly reminded Jia Jia. Not bad, not bad. Let's hurry up and look for it. Maybe there are other good things, Jia Jia responded in response. At this moment, the tip of the pointed gun suddenly flickered and shook as if it was about to break free from Jia Jia's hand. Fortunately, Jia Jia observed for a while and found that Sharp Gun wanted to take them somewhere. So he let go and let Sharp Gun lead the way on his own. Sure enough, the pointed spear flew forward on its own, and Jia quickly followed suit. The pointed spear flew up and down, high and low, for about half an hour before reaching a stone wall. Suddenly, it accelerated and penetrated the wall. The expected stone wall did not have the sound of stones exploding, but instead a light net appeared, blocking the progress of the pointed spear. The pointed gun suddenly emitted a sharp, squeak sound, accelerating once again and passing through the light web. Pup sounded like a broken brocade, and the pointed spear extended into it for a long time. With a loud thud, as if a pointed gun had hit a wooden door, it could no longer enter inch by inch, but soon, a strand of black smoke slowly drifted out from where the pointed gun had penetrated. At the same time, in the 1,000-mile mirror room of Zumishan Park, a thin and small old man suddenly exclaimed, "Magic energy, so strong." In the exorcism cave, quickly sound the alarm and send a message to the elder's home. The principal and I will go and take a look immediately. After speaking, a flash disappeared in place. And a burly middle-aged man beside him also flashed away. Inside the mysterious cave, Wei Qi and others have followed the guiding talisman to the place where the river is trapped. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw that the river was only temporarily trapped without any danger. Several people who had just checked the situation in the surrounding area, as well as Jiang Fushu and others who were originally ambushed in the area, met up when Wei Qi appeared, showing an ignorant expression. After looking at the formation, Wei Qi was about to cast a spell to break through the river barrier when suddenly a sharp alarm sounded around the cave. He quickly shouted to the crowd, "No, it's dangerous. Everyone, first take out the defensive treasures, armor, and talismans." At this moment, Jia and Jia Zink were still puzzled and exchanged glances, not knowing what the black smoke was. Suddenly, the stone wall and light net in front disappeared, replaced by a stone door with a small crack, and a black-clad man wearing a bamboo hat was holding the pointed gun in his raised hand. "Hee, swallowing magic spear, it's a pity you two little dolls. Since you like to swallow it so much, let me swallow you." The black-clothed man Jia smiled, and a chilling fear immediately surged into Jia's heart. Jia and Jia Zink felt their whole bodies frozen. Although they felt extremely scared and wanted to escape, their bodies were not obedient, except for trembling and unable to take a step. At this moment, two figures suddenly flashed, revealing their true selves next to Jia. They were the old man and the principal who were originally in the Qianli mirror room. "Bold demon slaying, how dare you come to my dragon realm to die? Then I'll give you a ride." The old man shouted at the man in black and then used a secret method to transmit the message to the principal. "There may be more than one demon clan here. Take your two children out and seek help from the dragon court and the elder's house." After speaking, the old man unleashed a spiritual power and shot towards the pointed spear. Zheng. A crisp sound came from the sound of gunfire, causing the gun body to shake violently. The gun body, which was originally controlled by the man in black, almost escaped. "Hee, even a junior clone dares to speak shamelessly. You all stay here today." The man in black quickly cast a spell to trap the swallowing demon spear with one hand and pointed towards the direction where the principal fled with Jia and Jia Zink with the other. The headmaster seemed to have a transparent wall in front of him, blocking the way. The principal quickly stopped and took out a golden talisman seal from his arms, reciting spells and injecting spiritual power. In no time, he shouted "illness" in his mouth and threw the talisman forward. Bang! The seal script exploded with a loud bang, and the principal and the two of them hurriedly flew forward. The explosion shattered the space barrier set by the black-clothed man, causing him to pause for a moment. The devouring magic spear, which was originally used to cast spells and compete with the old man, was also snatched by the old man. Although the man in black remained silent, there was a hint of solemnity on his face under the cover of the hat. He also disregarded the principal and exerted all his strength to cast spells and control the old man's battle with the devouring spear. At this moment, a hand shadow came out of thin air and landed on the demon-swallowing spear manipulated by the old man. The already sparkling and energetic demon-swallowing spear suddenly lost its luster and let out a mournful cry, shedding dust. When the old man was surprised, a huge figure appeared behind the man in black. That person is wearing a towering crown and colorful armor, with a height of about 2 zhang and a face full of flesh. "Marshal of the demon clan," the old man said in surprise. "This old man is an external affairs elder of the elder's house. Whether it was a war between gods and demons or a rebellion by a demon dragon before, he has seen the appearance of the marshal of the demon clan, and the 4 marshals of the demon clan, as the first step of the power under the supreme demon emperor of the demon realm, have strength comparable to the 4 major discourse elders of the dragon clan. Good eyesight. The marshal of the demon clan extended his finger and casually addressed the old man. A strange scene appeared, and the old man's body was like a thin piece of paper, immediately disintegrating and then turning into dust and disappearing. There was no sound throughout the journey. Jia San and Jia Si, hurry up and destroy everything here, including the traces. Our breath has leaked, and the dragon clan's great Neng will come here soon. We may not be able to fully retreat this time, said the marshal of the demon clan with a heavy expression. The black-clothed man and another black-clothed man who appeared at an unknown time immediately agreed and returned to the door. At this moment, the marshal of the demon clan looked towards the direction where the principal was escaping, took a deep breath, and then opened his mouth. A sharp sound that destroyed heaven and earth immediately roared out from the mouth of the grand marshal, and wherever it passed, everything turned into powder. The principal, who had flown several miles, immediately pulled out his defensive weapon to block himself and Urjia after hearing the sound. However, after the wave of air passed, the weapon, principal, and Urjia disappeared without a trace, with only dust suspended in mid-air and slowly falling. The sound waves continued to charge forward, and wherever they passed, they dissipated like destruction and decay. The people in the maze passage, hall, and cave clearly sensed the arrival of danger and offered various talismans, armor, and treasures. A strong sense of unease surged in Wei Qi's heart. He gave up the idea of saving the river from flowing first, placed protective treasures and talismans in the air, and then with a long roar, transformed back into the divine dragon body. The huge dragon god was coiled in the air, firmly protecting the students below and the magic array trapped in the river. The sound wave continued to advance and soon arrived at the passages, halls, and caves where people were present. The protective talismans, armor, and treasures, upon encountering the sound wave, immediately collapsed and shattered. Before those people could scream, they immediately turned into powder and disappeared. When the sound wave arrived at the channel where the river was located, a sudden burst of energy waves erupted from the dangerous area in front of it, but it disappeared instantly. Yin Lang touched Wei Qi's dragon body, which began to crack and slowly burst open. The talismans, armor, and magic treasures in the hands of the students below also broke one after another. The glowing array that originally trapped the river has dissipated after the sound waves, leaving only the river lying at the bottom of a shallow pit, with its clothes shattered and its exposed skin covered in strands of blood. The sound waves kept breaking out of the cave, wreaking havoc on the entire park. It slowly dissipated under the obstruction of the defensive formation stationed in Mashan Park. The entire park suddenly fell silent, and all the management buildings in the park had collapsed. With no one running out, there is only one large pit left in Juma Lake, and the water has turned into a white mist. The fish and other creatures in the lake have disappeared without a trace. Inside the cave, the passage collapsed, and the people who used to be in the hall and cave had disappeared. The beautiful crystal cave had turned into debris. The river struggled to lift its head and watched as Wei Qi's dragon spirit had dissipated. The dragon head, which had just been buried in its body, was completely unrecognizable. Its eyes were tightly closed, and blood was constantly flowing. Only at the center of its eyebrows did there seem to be a flickering light. Teacher Wei. The river struggled to make a sound. You. Still. Alive. So. Great. A low and inaudible voice came from the center of the dragon head's eyebrows. Teacher. Are you okay? Jiang Lu couldn't help but shed tears. Okay. Okay. Live. That faint voice was filled with hope, comfort, and relief. Teacher. Jiang Lu suppressed the pain and looked up at the dragon head. The dragon head seemed to sense something and didn't speak anymore. Suddenly, the entire dragon head and the fragments of dragon meat on the ground turned into pure white feathers, which slowly dissipated. Is it coming of age? Murmured the river to itself. Feather transformation is the process in which all spirits and races, before dying, transform their physical energy into light feathers. Originally, it was not used much, but after the demon backlash occurred, various spiritual tribes were afraid that their bodies would be eaten or refined by the demon after death, so they used feathering to dissipate their bodies. And there is also a legend that after the emergence of all spirits, they may be reincarnated. After Wei Qi's body disappeared, the people who were originally under him also revealed themselves. Unfortunately, some people dissipated as the sound waves passed by, while others were incomplete, with only a few seemingly intact people coming inside near the river. Jiang Lu. Suddenly, a difficult cry came from among the complete people. He cherishes it, are you still alive? Jiang Lu raised his head and wanted to climb forward, but his limbs were even more disobedient. No, okay. I want to see you. Last. A glance. The intermittent voice became weaker and weaker. I'm right in front of you, don't talk, the rescue team will come soon, Jiang Lu said, unable to help but shed tears. The person lying in front of the river slowly began to look up, and the river kept watching her, feeling the pain on her body and suddenly becoming numb. I don't know how long it took, but Cici finally lifted his head and looked at the river with a pair of dark eyes. Cici, shouted the river towards him, and Cici's face showed a slight smile. His head sank and he hung down. Subsequently, a beautiful light feather rose from the position where River Cici was lying, seemingly spinning towards the river flow before dissipating. At this moment, the river finally passed out due to injury and pain. On the other hand, the marshal of the demon clan used a move called Magic Sound Annihilation and prepared to evacuate with his subordinates. At this moment, an old figure appeared before him. Moin, if you don't stay in the demon world properly, you came to our dragon clan to kill at the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Even if you die 10,000 times today, it's hard to justify your wrongdoing. The old man's voice was loud, causing the ears of the other demon clans to buzz. It turned out to be Elder Xiong, you came quite quickly. The demon clan marshal, known as the Demon Sound, immediately took a breath and Yunli spat out the sound wave towards the old man. The old man, known as the Xiong Elder, had an extra big drum in his hand at some point. When he saw the sound wave coming, he calmly tapped the drum with his hand. Dong! With a muffled sound, the drums collided with the sound wave, causing a violent explosion. After a loud bang, the scene was quiet, but the power of the explosion overturned the group of demons standing behind the demon sound to the ground. Only the old man and the demonic voice stood motionless with their tattoos. Oh, it turns out to be a clone of the main soul, no wonder it's so arrogant. A voice came out of thin air, and next to the old man holding the drum, 3 old men suddenly appeared. Magic sound, no matter how powerful your destructive magic sound is, with my Jingtao Gong and Lao Xiong's Shanghai drum present today, you will definitely die without a place to bury yourself. A gong-wielding old man standing next to the drum-wielding old man said to Magic Sound. The demonic voice remained calm, turned around and took a deep breath, sucking in all the demons behind her. Looking up at the 4 people, he said, it is an honor for Moin to be able to fight against the top 4 elders of the Dragon Clan, the Waves of Turbulence. After speaking, take a deep breath and spray towards the 4 people. Hands on. One of the old men shouted, and suddenly, the sound of drums, the sound of Luo, the sword light, and the shadow of Quan attacked Moin together. The majestic magic sound suddenly came to an abrupt end. The attack did not pause for a moment and headed straight towards Moin. After a piercing sound of shattering, the body of the demonic sound shattered inch by inch, and then the whole body turned into dust with a loud bang, even its soul dissipated together. Iced Yusheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. When Jiang Lu woke up, it was already over 2 months later. He lay in bed and opened his eyes to see a small round face covered in stubble, slightly haggard. Luo Hao, didn't you go home to congratulate your great-grandfather on his birthday? How did it turn out like this? Did you do something wrong and get punished by your family? Jiang Lu looked at Luo Hao and asked. Lu. Brother Lu, are you awake? Luo Hao wiped his tears with excitement as he saw Jiang Lu finally wake up. Luo Hao, what's going on? Why are you crying? What exactly happened? Jiang Lu asked Luo Hao in confusion. Luo Hao noticed Jiang Lu's serious expression on his face, not as if he was joking. He couldn't help but be taken aback and asked softly, Brother Lu, don't you remember what happened? Jiang Lu looked puzzled and said, What happened? What can I do? Hey, where is this? This is the school clinic, Brother Lu. Don't you really remember what happened? Luo Hao asked anxiously. Ah, the clinic. Did I get hurt? Yes, I had a fight with Jiang Fushui. I remember I won, but he punched me a few times and it hurt. Did he hurt me? Jiang Lu seemed to think of something. At this moment, Tianyin walked in from outside, and with her spiritual power, she naturally had already heard the conversation between Jiang Lu and Luo Hao outside. Jiang Lu. Don't you remember the spring outing? Tianyin sat on a chair by Jiang Lu's bed and asked Jiang Lu with a concerned expression. Hello Teacher Tian. Why are you here? Spring outing. Isn't spring outing tomorrow? As Tianyin was about to ask, Kaijima walked in and said, Jiang Lu. You're awake. Are you feeling a bit dizzy? You can sleep a little longer. I'm a bit dizzy, am I injured, Teacher Kai? Jiang Lu asked curiously as she saw Kaijima also coming. Yes, you're a bit injured. Speak less and sleep a little longer, Kaijima said seriously. Although Jiang Lu was suspicious, he suddenly felt his eyelids heavy. He closed his eyes and soon fell asleep. Kaijima gestured for Tianyin and Luo Hao to go outside, and the two quietly followed Kaijima out of the ward. Lao Kai, may the river flow have hurt your brain? Tianyin immediately asked anxiously. Luo Hao also looked at Kaijima with puzzled eyes. This is called a stress response. When the river suddenly encounters such a big stimulus, coupled with being unconscious for so long, the mind becomes unclear and normal. After 2 days, it will gradually improve, Kaijima explained to the two. However, we still can't stimulate him too much, otherwise it will really drive him crazy, Kaijima added. I hope he can get better soon. This time, the school has lost more than 2,100 students and more than 100 teachers, and the only surviving river has to be preserved. Tianyin said in a low voice. This time, except for our school, the more than 200 staff members stationed in the Mashan scenic area were all wiped out. Even the main sole clone of the foreign affairs elder dispatched to the scenic area did not escape. More than 350 other tourists also fell due to our school's charter and traffic restrictions, which can be said to be a heavy loss. Kaijima sighed. However, the opponent had a grand marshal equivalent to the level of elders in the elders' palace, 2 generals equivalent to the level of ordinary elders, and more than a dozen colonels. If it weren't for the fact that Juma Mountain was originally a military stronghold with a large number of magic formations and prohibitions, the casualties would have been even greater this time. The great demon head, known as the Magic Sound, was notorious for using the famous spell, Annihilation Magic Sound, to destroy a small world of 1 billion people in the divine realm. Tianyin said lightly again. Xiao Luo. Take good care of the river these days, don't stimulate him too much, Kaijima turned to Luo Hao and said. Don't worry, both teachers. I will take good care of the river. Although Luo Hao heard the general situation of the day from others, his heart was still greatly shaken when he heard the conversation between the two teachers. The next day, Jiang Lu woke up again and looked at Luo Hao without saying a word. "Brother Lu, what do you want to eat?" Luo Hao asked gently, afraid of stimulating the river. Ah, why did such a beautiful spring outing turn into such a terrifying nightmare? Jiang Lu seemed to be talking to Luo Hao, as if to himself. "Brother Lu, do you remember?" Luo Hao asked on the side. "Teacher Wei will never come back to protect us," Jiang Lu sobbed. "There is also, he Cici and other classmates who will never come back. Brother Lu, don't be sad. Even if Teacher Wei doesn't fight to protect everyone, with the strength of that demon marshal, everyone will inevitably die." Luo Hao said with tears in his eyes. "Yes, I will also die hard." Jiang Lu couldn't help but shed tears. Luo Hao didn't answer, just picked up a clean handkerchief, shedding tears while helping Jiang Lu wipe his tears. At this moment, a study doctor walked in and said to Jiang Lu, "Someone is coming to see you." Before the river could think of who it was, a hunched old woman walked into the hospital room trembling with a cane in one hand and a bamboo basket in the other. I saw the old woman with a smile on her face, white hair all over her head, wrinkles all over her face, looking at the river with a kind expression on her face. "Rivers, I'm Wei Qi's grandmother. I heard you woke up, and I made an ice-hard fish for you to taste." Luo Hao quickly offered his seat to the old woman and asked her to sit down. Jiang Lu wanted to sit up, and the old woman gently waved her hand. Jiang Lu felt a gentle force coming towards her, and her body couldn't help but lie down again. "Come on, have a taste. Wei Qi likes eating this ice-hard yusheng, and she said you also like it." The old woman took out a lunch box from the bamboo basket, opened it, put orderly ice-hard fish slices, and filled the lunch box. A chopstick was handed to Jiang Lu's hand, and the old woman looked at him kindly. "Eat quickly, yusheng should be eaten fresh." "Grandma. Teacher Wei." Jiang Lu's face was filled with tears, choked up and unable to speak. "Child, don't be sad, mother.in.law is even sadder than you." The old woman's face showed a mournful expression. 10,000 years ago, all the male members of my family, except for my newly married son, went to the front line of resistance against demons. 3 months later, they heard that the Divine Alliance and all the spirits were attacking the demon clan and achieving victory. My youngest son bid farewell to his recently pregnant daughter.in.law and went to the front line, leaving only me and a few daughter.in.law at home. I thought I could stay at home and wait for the men to return triumphantly. However, the Demon Dragon clan suddenly rebelled and led the main force of the Demon clan to evacuate to the Demon realm through the Dragon realm. Wherever they went, they were wiped out and there was no grass left. My other daughter.in.law died in the battle of protecting the family and defending the realm, my daughter.in.law. As we were pregnant, we hid in a secret room at home and were taken care of by me. However, we were still discovered by the demon tribe and were severely injured. Fortunately, we had a secret treasure to defend ourselves, so we could deceive the demon tribe with a false death. After the demon tribe left, my daughter.in.law gave birth to an underage dragon egg and passed away. I had hoped that the war would end and the male family would return home to rebuild our home, but I didn't expect to wait until the war ended and the news that all the male family members had died in battle. At this time, the old woman was already in tears. At that time, I was in excruciating pain and wanted to follow my family. But when I thought about the hatred of my family, the hatred of having an unborn grandson, I thought about incubating the dragon egg, raising the child to adulthood, and avenging the hatred of my family. However, during my daughter.in.law's pregnancy, she was worried and did not give birth at full term. It took me thousands of years, every detail, and every effort, to hatch the dragon egg and name it Wei Qi. Later, I put in countless efforts to help him grow and become a talented person. Every time I saw him achieve success, I felt 1,000 comforts in my heart. The hardships of these 10,000 years are all worth it, the old woman continued, wiping away her tears. When he encountered danger, he protected his students with his own body. He died well, and he is truly my grandson. Although he left me first, he will always be my pride. The old woman looked up, tears shining in her eyes. The pillow in the river was wet, so the old woman took Yusheng closer. Come on, son, Wei Qi always mentioned you when he was there, so I know you also like eating ice-hard Yusheng. This time, all the Longren in Zhuma Mountain fell apart, except you. I know this is not Wei Qi's credit, but he is absolutely pleased that you are still alive. Even if he and you could only live one life at that time, he would definitely choose to let you live. The old woman paused and continued. I have no other request, just ask you to live well, for yourself, for Wei Qi, and for her mother. In law. The river choked up and couldn't speak, just nodded fiercely. I didn't have much time, so I wanted to find a companion to take care of him as soon as possible. Later, I heard that Ling Lingli was interested in Wei Qi, so I specifically asked the school to divide them into one class as class teacher and class teacher assistant. However, in the end, I still didn't see the result, but it didn't matter anymore. The old woman finished speaking and her expression returned to calm. She sat on the chair, no longer speaking, quietly watching the river flow. When the river finishes eating Yusheng, she puts the bowl back into the bamboo basket, sticks up her crutches, says goodbye to the river, and then staggers out of the hospital room. Just the river looked at the departing figure, more hunched than when it came in. After dinner, Tian Yin and Kai Jima came to see Jianglu again. Seeing Jianglu, their thoughts regained and their spirits improved compared to yesterday. However, after listening to Jianglu's account of Wei Qi's grandmother's visit to him today, the two of them couldn't help but sigh. Just then, another person came in, a middle-aged and elderly person who looked about 60 years old, holding a fruit platter in his hand. Tian Yin and Kai Jima stood up immediately when they saw the visitor. Principal Ji has a lot of things to do every day. Why do you have time to come here today? Are you here to see the river? Kai Jima smiled and bowed. I heard that Principal Ji is usually meticulous and never brings gifts when looking at people. Today is the sun coming out from the west. Ha ha ha, the two teachers are joking. Ji was asked to come and see someone today. The person who came was nicknamed Iron Rooster, and was in charge of logistics, Vice Principal Ji. Oh, rare guests, Kaijima joked, who could be so prestigious that our Principal Ji ran errands. Ha ha ha, Vice Principal Ji laughed and said, of course it's the father of Jianglu. He's busy with official duties and can't help but entrust an old man to visit on his behalf. What, there's such a father like this. I thought Jiangliu's parents were in a life-threatening situation, and even if their son almost died, they wouldn't pay attention, Tian Yin said angrily. Teacher Tian misunderstood. Jianglu's mother has indeed been at a critical juncture in recent years, but Jianglu's father has a special position and cannot escape. You see, he even asked me to bring the divine fruit to Jianglu. This divine fruit was specially given to Jianglu's father by His Majesty Long Jun when he heard that Jianglu was injured. Vice Principal Ji opened the fruit box and revealed 5 beautiful divine fruits. Linglong tourmaline fruit. Jianglu glanced at the fruit and blurted out its name. Linglong tourmaline fruit can regulate breath and blood, aid in spiritual growth, strengthen muscles and bones, nourish the mind and spirit. It ripens once every 10 years and once every 20 years. The raw fruit is green, and the ripe fruit is milky white. The top of the high-quality Linglong tourmaline fruit has a red glow. This ripe fruit should not be stored for a long time, and it can spoil and rot after being stored for up to 10 days. It is advisable to take one fruit at a time and every 30 days. Jianglu explained the efficacy and characteristics of Linglong tourmaline fruit according to medical books. Not bad, Vice Principal Ji quickly praised. No wonder Lao Kai often praises Jiang Lu, who is indeed a good seedling for studying medicine. The growth environment of this Linglong tourmaline fruit needs to be at room temperature all year round, not too cold or too hot, so it can only be planted in some areas south of the Dragon Realm. Usually, the quantity is rare, and the high-quality ones are directly used as tribute, which will hardly flow out to the market. Jiang Lu, my task is completed, so hurry up and collect the fruit. Jiang Lu said, thank you Principal Ji for running errands. This fruit should not be stored for a long time, except for picking and transportation. It can hardly be stored for a few days. Eating one within a month is enough, and eating more linglong fruits will not be effective. It happens to be 5 linglong fruits. Tourmaline fruit, there are 5 of us here, and each person happens to have one. Vice Principal Ji waved his hand and said, how can we eat such a precious divine fruit, which was bestowed upon us by Lord Long? Before the river could speak, Kaijima said, just as the river was right, this linglong tourmaline fruit should not be left for a long time and should not be eaten too much at once. Instead of wasting it, it's better for everyone to accept the river's favor and eat the fruit one by one. River, you can take it first. Jiang Lu reached out and took one, then put it to his mouth and started eating. Kaijima didn't hesitate, the second one took the fruit. When he finished, Tianyin also took one. Vice Principal Ji, seeing that several people had taken it, was not polite and took one to eat. There was only the last one left on the plate, and Jiang Lu picked it up and stuffed it into Luo Hao's hand. Luo Hao quickly refused, Brother Lu. You should give such valuable fruit to other teachers or others. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. When did you become a motherly woman? I told you to eat quickly. Jiang Lu stuffed the fruit into Luo Hao's hand, not looking at him, but chewed it on his own. Although the taste of this fruit is not outstanding, its aroma is very strong. After eating it, the whole person feels incredibly refreshing. Luo Hao appeared pretentious when he tried to evade again, so he didn't hesitate to eat the fruit. Tomorrow is the first day of June, and these days are passing so fast. It's time for the upcoming season break. Tianyin finished eating the fruit and found that there was nothing to talk about, so she talked about the days. June 1st. The others didn't think of anything, but Jiang Lu suddenly shouted excitedly. Tomorrow is the comprehensive theoretical exam, it's over. I've been lying in bed for so long, I haven't done any revision. Several teachers quickly comforted Jiang Lu, allowing him to postpone the exam for another 6 months. However, Jiang Lu decided to take the exam tomorrow first, and if he did the best, he would treat it as a practice. He will take the exam again in 6 months. Kaijima and others agreed after discussing the extent of the river's recovery. The next day, Luo Hao used a wheelchair from the medical clinic to push the river to the examination room. Jiang Lu survived in the Zumishan scenic area at that time, which was a hot topic. Now that I am awake and still sitting in a wheelchair to take an exam, it naturally causes a discussion among others. Fortunately, the exam questions only covered a wide range and were of moderate difficulty. In the end, Jiang Lu easily completed all the questions and returned to the clinic in a wheelchair. Shortly after, the results were released, and Jiang Lu passed the exam without any doubt, and even scored high. After passing the theoretical comprehensive exam, the rest is practice and travel. Tianyin and Kaijima believed that Jiang Lu's injuries were not yet fully healed, so they decided to let him intern at a medical clinic while continuing to treat his illness. Medical life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. In the future, Jiang Lu, as an intern at the medical clinic, lived in the duty dormitory next to the clinic. But unlike the previous aspirations during theoretical learning, actual practical life is not as good as imagined. It is more dull and mechanical, and occasionally there are some bloody events. In the clinic, although Jiang Lu received special care from Kaijima and many people provided him with convenience and help. Where there were people, there were rivers and lakes. Kaijima, due to his superb medical skills and straightforward speech, naturally had some people in the clinic who were not on the same side as him. The people Kaijima liked, they would not give him a good face. On the other hand, many students who come here for internships hope to receive excellent practical evaluations or even stay and work after graduation, so there is competition among different interns. And even more terrifying are those who smile and get close to you on the surface, thinking you've met your own person, and then take advantage of your unpreparedness to stab you in the back. Of course, more often than not, it's the busy work every day. After all, schools with tens of thousands of students and tens of thousands of faculty members have a large base. Today, Zhang San has a headache, and tomorrow, Li Si has a hot brain. The medical department that releases new interns is the initial diagnosis and classification department. Not only do patients of all kinds need to make basic judgments before transferring to corresponding departments, but they also need to cooperate with the few formal doctors in the department to do a good job of personnel rescue when encountering critically ill patients. So most of the time, Jiang Lu and other interns spend very busy work and have no time to consider calculating with each other. The river, which used to have a solid theoretical foundation, immediately learned how to deal with it after a few days of busyness in the early stages. At the same time, through patient treatment practice, his medical knowledge has also made rapid progress. Of course, those who can come here for practice are either those with strong knowledge in medicine or those with strong backgrounds. So the competition for excellence evaluation in practice appears even more intense, both overtly and covertly. With the familiarity of work, the duty hours of Jiang Lu have been basically set. 3 days off and 1 day off are available, which means 3 days off can be adjusted once. Whether the 3 days are day shift, night shift, or white plus black all day depends on the arrangement of the department director. Similarly, whether to take a day off, half a day off, or a while off depends on the situation. Poor Jiang Lu, when he was still a junior student in the Dragon Clan, had already experienced the hardships of working as a laborer. One day, Jiang Lu took the day shift and arrived at the clinic half an hour early. Just as I walked into the department gate and was about to return to the lounge to change into work clothes, I saw an old lady dragging the intern from last night's night shift, feeling very excited. Next to her stood an old man and a few people who looked like patients and interns, but did not come forward to help. The intern's name is Kong Jian. He has been in contact with the river and is almost 300 years old. At the age of 180, he completed his theoretical exam and then chose to travel before practicing. One day, while traveling to a small feudal state, he saw the beloved princess of the king worrying about her acne on her face. He prescribed a prescription that was more effective in the Tianlai Academy to the princess. He intended to show it off, but mistakenly increased the dosage by 10 times, almost causing the princess's face to be disfigured. The angry little feudal king jumped up and let the guards beat him half to death, throwing him on the street. Fortunately, wearing the school uniform of Tina Academy, he was rescued and lay in the school clinic for 2 years. After recovering, I stayed in the clinic for practice, which has been almost 100 years so far. Because I have suffered from careless losses, I have been cautious and always check my orders. I have not had any problems for 100 years. But the old lady seemed unwilling to let go, and the healthy woman didn't feel anxious. He cast a pleading glance at the onlookers and suddenly caught a glimpse of the river flowing into the entrance of the hospital. That is Jiang Lu, the student of Director Kai. Li's mother wants to find Director Kai, so it would be more convenient to find Jiang Lu. Kong Jian seemed to see a life-saving straw, but regardless of whether Jiang Lu could handle the unreasonable old lady in front of him, he just needed to hurry up and turn the person out. The river saw the old lady looking at her and heard Kong Jiangang mention her. Knowing that she had another troublesome job, she decided to walk towards a few people head-on. Hello Teacher Li and Teacher Li, student Jiang Lu is an intern at the medical school. I'm not sure if he can serve the second elder, Jiang Lu asked calmly. Are you a student of Kai Jima? I want to see Kai Jima. You call him out, the old lady said fiercely. Reply to Teacher Li, Teacher Kai has recently gone to Longnan City in the south to attend a medical seminar and has not returned yet. He cannot come to see you, Jiang Lu replied calmly. Humph, last time I saw Lu Posi's skin cracking on her hand in our college, I went straight in to see Kai Jima. Lu Posi is a top-notch teacher, and my husband is also a top-notch teacher. Why should I come to see Kai Jima for medical treatment and come to this clinic? Jiang Lu is aware of the school's regulations, which provide preferential treatment for special grade teachers when seeking medical treatment, but this is limited to herself. This is Li's mother, who used to be a retired laborer in the school's logistics, so she naturally cannot enjoy the medical treatment for special grade teachers. Jiang Lu smiled and said, Teacher Li. As the student mentioned earlier, even if the principal comes to the clinic to find Teacher Kai, they won't be able to find him. As for the triage, it's Teacher Kai's absence. We'll arrange the most suitable doctor for you to see. The Kong student who received you just now is almost staying in the clinic and is the oldest and most beloved intern here. The old lady saw that Jiang Lu had a good attitude and said, since Director Kai is not here, I'll come see him next time. Jiang Lu hurriedly said, since Teacher Li and Teacher's mother have come tirelessly, why don't we first find other teachers to take a look? Our Shadow May teacher in the Department of Pediatrics has a lot of research on hand skin cracking. We will have Senior Kong sign today's number 1 for you later. As soon as the attending teacher starts working, you can be the first to see it. The old lady nodded and said, just do as you say. Healthy as if granted amnesty, I quickly signed the registration form for the old lady. Afterwards, Kong Jian was extremely grateful to the river flow. Jiang Ludao said, Senior, you have been in the medical school for a long time and your abilities have been highly valued and recognized by the teachers. If you stay on campus in the future, remember to provide more guidance to your younger brother. Kong Jian chuckled and said, it's easy to say, it's easy to say. Sure enough, Kong Jian introduced Jiang Lu as his own person and often took him to exchange and gather with close interns. In his leisure time, he shared his century-long practical experience, the division of internal forces in the medical institution, the character and preferences of various doctors, and the situation of other interns. For Jiang Lu, who had just interned at the medical institution, this was equivalent to obtaining a quick practice manual and a lightning protection guide, which would add many benefits to his future internship in the medical institution. A few months of calm and busy days have passed, and early that morning, Jiang Lu, who had just arrived at the clinic, was notified to visit the office of the department director Li Xiaoyu. Li Xiaoyu is usually strict and likes to criticize people in the morning and praise them at night, so he called Jiang Lu over early in the morning. The assistant doctor in charge of notification looked sympathetic as Jiang Lu walked towards Li Xiaoyu's office. When Jiang Lu knocked on the door and walked into the director's office, he saw Li Xiaoyu with a stern face. Jiang Lu. Yesterday, the hepatobiliary department came to complain, saying that Dr. Li Xiangqin's account had been notified to stop, and you even opened 2 accounts to go out, which almost made Dr. Li Xiangqin miss the school's banquet for the exchange group from other schools. He said and threw out 2 registration forms. Jiang Lu glanced at Li Xiaoyu and respectfully said, Director, this may be a misunderstanding. The students happened to take a break yesterday and went to the school forum to listen to Director Hai Ying's lecture on treatment and rehabilitation of trauma damage. Furthermore, during the students' duty period, each registration form sent out will be numbered and recorded in sequence, for the convenience of tracking the patient's medical condition in the future. Speaking, he put the stack of check.in stubs and blank check.in slips in his hand on the table for Li Xiaoyu to see. The last registration form issued by the student was from the burn department the night before yesterday when he was on duty. Please let the director take note, Jiang Lu said and respectfully checked with Li Xiaoyu. Li Xiaoyu glanced at the registration booklet on the table with his spare light and said, You go down and work. Jiang Lu bowed out and returned to his internship station as if nothing had happened, starting the triage work for the day. Jiang Lu originally wanted to become a doctor to treat illnesses and save lives, because he believed that doctors were respected and could help others relieve pain and even save lives, which was a very accomplished thing. But obviously, the fact is not as simple as imagined. Just talking about treating diseases and saving people is not something that can be saved just by wanting to save them. Experts from medical institutions such as Kaijima and Haiying are considered top technical figures in the field of dragon medicine, but not every time they make a move can save people. Therefore, medical institutions are not only the lucky place for some people to survive, but also the sad place for some people to part ways. More importantly, there are different illnesses, as well as a variety of people and stories. Jiang Lu suddenly began to admire Kang Jian for being able to persist for 100 years as an intern. I admire Kaijima, Li Xiaoyu, and others for persevering for thousands of years in such an environment. One day, after taking a day off, Jiang Lu returned to the clinic. I don't know when he started, but every time he takes a break and goes to work, he walks in carefully because he encounters many troubles in his daily life. For some reason, he likes to pick the day he comes to work after taking a break. He carefully pushed open the side door of the hospital, and what was supposed to be bustling was actually quiet. The river quickly observed around and found many people in front of him. In the middle sat a woman in a luxurious dress, with several guards standing behind him. Around him, high-level officials such as Haiying and Kaijima were present, and doctors like Li Xiaoyu also gathered in a crowd. Other interns and some patients are surrounded by the disease. After listening to a few words, Jiang Lu roughly understood that this dressed woman was from the royal family. Her daughter, who was studying in the college, suddenly had stomach pain while sleeping last night and was taken to the hospital. Perhaps there were more emergency patients last night, so the hospital did not arrange for a doctor to treat her in a timely manner. As soon as the little girl was wronged, she was summoned back home. As a result, as the mother of the royal family woman, she came early to seek punishment. Jiang Lu saw that the senior management of the medical clinic was present, and it was not something he could solve on his own. He returned to the lounge, changed his work clothes, and stood on the outskirts. The senior management of the medical clinic offered both apologies and apologies. The princess and the princess kindly advised each other for a long time. Even though the child of the woman in Chinese attire was safe and sound after examination and treatment, she still refused to give up. Even if the senior management of the school came to apologize later, the woman in Chinese attire refused to give up. As an intern, Jiang Lu naturally had no choice when faced with such a situation. It was just that everyone was frozen here, and other people who came to see a doctor were also hesitant. No one came to register for medical treatment, afraid of causing trouble. Just as the top management of the school and the clinic were all at a loss, a warm and gentle male voice suddenly came in from the door. The clinic is not open today, why are people stuck here? Everyone looked for a voice, and a man with a jade-like face, clear eyebrows and eyes, and a graceful demeanor walked in with two boys wearing school uniforms. Upon seeing the visitor, both the senior management of the school and the hospital welcomed them, and even the dressed women sitting in chairs stood up. So it's the Crown Prince. An old man from the top management greeted the man with a fist in his hand. The man quickly bowed back and said, "Vice President Qian, you're welcome. Jiang Jian is just a student and came to the clinic to see if he's feeling unwell." "Oh, isn't this the shallow-y little princess from the Wang family in Xinqing County? Why, the little princess is also feeling unwell and came to the clinic to see a doctor." The dressed woman bowed to the crown prince and then added insult to injury by recounting the process of her daughter's sudden illness and seeking medical treatment at the clinic last night. Finally, she even shed a few tears. The crown prince was surprised and asked, "What about AI's condition?" Next to her, Haiying hurriedly said, "The princess is fine and currently resting in the senior ward." The crown prince said, "Since everything is fine now, why don't you take the little princess to the advanced ward to take care of her daughter?" We can't bring her daughter here to show her, can we? Haiying quickly said yes and made a gesture of invitation to Princess Jenny. She didn't want to get angry anymore, so she followed Haiying to the ward. Lao Kai, the crown prince, is feeling unwell. Why don't you take him inside to take a look? Vice President Qian saw that the matter of a woman in Chinese clothing was resolved by the crown prince and quickly asked Kaijima to take the crown prince to see the situation. I'm just a student, according to school regulations, let the classification department take a look for me first. The crown prince saluted several people. Then he cleared his throat and asked, may I ask if the intern in charge of triage is there? The high-level officials of those schools and medical institutions were about to say something when Jiang Lu walked out of the crowd and found Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Salute to the crown prince and say, hello, Senior Jiang. Oh, Jiang Lu is you. If I remember correctly, you're only in your 20s and can come here as an intern. It's really nice. No wonder Meyer admires you so much as a younger brother. If it weren't for my confidence in myself, I would have really worried. To get to the point, I might have been practicing too fast lately, causing some discomfort in my body. Can you help me register for a triage first? Jiang Yen said seriously to Jiang Lu. Senior, can I help you check your lower pulse? Jiang Lu saw that the other person had a special identity and some of his conditions were not good. He openly stated in front of everyone that he was not good at randomly triaging him, so he wanted to confirm his lower pulse. That's for sure. Jiang Shi handed his left hand to Jiang Lu without hesitation. After a brief pulse, Jiang Lu said to Jiang Shi, it's because the senior practiced too quickly and slightly injured his body. This is also a common disease, so it shouldn't be a big deal. In our clinic, the person who has studied the damage caused by practicing should be Director Haiying. However, he just accompanied the little princess and probably won't be able to see a doctor for a while. Our clinic, as well as Director Kaijima and Director Haiying, have studied it equally. His elderly family is here, so I'll triage you to his clinic. Jiang Yen nodded to Jiang Lu and looked at Kaijima, saying, it would be best if Director Kai could personally diagnose and treat him. After taking the registration form handed over by Jiang Lu, he raised his head to Kaijima. Please. Kaijima made a gesture and took Jiang Ting to her clinic. After the crowd dispersed, there was an immediate burst of discussion in the crowd. Of course, the most talked about one was Jiang Yen, who was handsome, influential, and humble, completely different from the arrogant little princess. Some girls sighed, because such a handsome and wealthy man already had a double cultivation partner, and that partner is now known as the school flower. Jiang Mei, son of the crown prince. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. When Jiang Lu met Jiang Mei, it was during a college mathematics invitation competition in his teens. At that time, Tina Academy invited outstanding students from several top schools of the Dragon Clan to participate in a math competition under the guise of an invitation competition. Due to the fact that the elective courses in various schools are mainly chosen by students themselves, there is no age requirement for students. As long as they achieve first grade in math classes, they can register. But in the dragon race where cultivation is the main focus, the difficulty of math classes is not high, so there are naturally many people who can participate in the competition. As the host, Tianlai College naturally encourages students who have passed the first class to sign up, so the names of Jiang Lu are all registered by the school and can be notified to take the exam. On the day of the competition, Jiang Lu passed the preliminary and semi-finals and advanced to the finals. Participating in the finals is determined by doing the same question on site and determining the ranking based on the length of time it takes to answer the question correctly. At that time, the host of the finals was Jiang Mei, the school flower of Tina College. The final question is quite complex, but not difficult. It requires the use of different mathematical formulas to derive the final answer. If one step is wrong in the middle of the calculation, the result cannot be obtained. The calculation of the river flow went relatively smoothly, and the first one to obtain the correct answer won the first place in the competition. At that time, the organizing committee checked the information of the applicants and found that Jiang Lu was the youngest among the thousands of participants in the entire competition. Therefore, in the award ceremony, a sharing of the learning experience of the first prize winner was added to promote mathematics learning as a highlight. But at that time, Jiang Lu was a mature young student, not to mention speaking of experience, he had not fully understood all the words in his math textbooks. So as the host, Jiang Mei is gentle and persuasive. Through chatting, he first helps Jiang Lu stabilize his emotions, then categorizes and organizes his experiences, and selects some good expressions for Jiang Lu to speak on stage. Anyway, what did Jiang Lu say at the end? Jiang Lu only remembers the last sentence. "Thank you everyone," and forgot everything else. However, through this conversation, Jiang Mei learned that both Jiang Lu and himself are from the right ethnic group in Jiangnan. Although they are from Wufu, Jiang Lu's family address is separated from his own by a river. Therefore, when Jiang Lu sees him in the future, he will call him senior sister, while he will call him junior brother. That Jiang Yan is the son of the eldest son of the Dragon Lord, the crown prince of the Dragon clan. As he has not yet experienced the thunder calamity at the age of 500 and is still considered a minor, the Dragon Lord has not bestowed a title on him, so outsiders call him the Crown Prince. Originally, the royal family had a dedicated private education team to educate Long Jun's close relatives and grandchildren, but the several older brothers in front of Jiang Yan died inexplicably before reaching adulthood. The Crown Prince knew that he had a dark hand, but he struggled as the Crown Prince and was not favored. He also trembled every day, so he followed the advice of a master and sent Jiang Jian to study at the Tianlai Academy. Due to concerns about Jiang Shi's safety, at the beginning, Jiang Shi's identity was not publicly disclosed except for the school's senior management who knew his identity. Jiang Jian and Jiang Mei are in the same grade and often encounter each other. Jiang Mei, who looks beautiful and versatile, is naturally the object of Jiang Mei's secret love, and Jiang Jiang is handsome, gentle and elegant, with a graceful demeanor, naturally favored by Jiang Mei. So one day, the two discovered each other's intentions and naturally became boyfriend and girlfriend. During several competitions and school performances that Jiang Lu participated in later on, he met Jiang Mei several times, and Jiang Mei naturally took good care of this excellent ethnic brother. However, after Jiang Lu's body grew into an adult shape at the age of 20, his handsome appearance and Jiang Mei's laughter and chatter in the backstage spread rumors, making Jiang Mei jealous and even leading people to block Jiang Lu on the road. Fortunately, in order to maintain his image, Jiang Ting treated his troops with courtesy first. After listening to Jiang Lu talk about his relationship with Jiang Mei and believing that Jiang Mei did treat him like a younger brother, he didn't make things difficult for him. As Jiang Shi's identity was leaked in the later stage, the crown princess was afraid that there would be too many noble officials who wanted to form a political alliance with Jiang Shi. She decided to directly let Jiang Shi and Jiang Mei become cultivation partners, first cutting off the path of the alliance, and no one would offend them. After all, the more political allies the crown prince has now, the more he is suspected by the Dragon Lord, and the more enemies he has, the easier he is to be deceived. The Dragon Clan law stipulates that in order for people of the Divine Dragon Clan to get married, they must meet the requirements of an adult who has experienced thunder and tribulation. However, a cultivation partner can be established under the age of a minor, and without special reasons, the cultivation partner will be given priority as the spouse of an adult. After receiving medical treatment from Kaijima, Jiang Jian left the clinic through a secret passage with Kaijima, so Jiang Lu did not see him later. However, his appearance reminded Jiang Lu of the course of history. According to historical books, the people of all races and spirits living in the 3,000 worlds today were born billions of years ago, traveling from another universe by spaceship to escape the ultimate calamity. After breaking through the wall, nearly 10,000 spirit tribes survived. Later, the leaders of the Shenren tribe invited various ethnic leaders to participate in the All-Spirit Alliance at Huimeng Mountain, and formulated a mutual aid treaty for all spirits. At the same time, the Shenren tribe used the top-level technique of simplifying the all-spirits, human, method to allow each member of other ethnic groups to practice, and each creature transformed into a human form to save energy consumption. At the same time, time, numbers, and weights were unified, and a universal language, writing, and currency were formulated. After the All Souls Alliance, various ethnic groups rested and quickly took root in these 3,000 worlds. In the early stage, because all living beings could transform into human forms, the problem of racial segregation was solved, leading to intermarriage between different races. Over countless years, different races and environments have allowed different creatures to evolve into many different branches. The divine dragons, magical dragons, true dragons, and even mortal dragons of the dragon clan are all slowly formed by the same race under different environments and cultivation methods. As time passes, friction often occurs within certain races for the sake of profit. Some races also experience constant friction, and although the overall turmoil is frequent, under the leadership of the Divine Alliance of the Divine Race, life has finally barely survived. However, what truly changed the landscape was a conflict that occurred hundreds of millions of years ago. The Demon Clan, who had been competing with the Dragon Clan for the second clan of the All Souls, launched a great uprising due to dissatisfaction with the rule of the Demon Lord at that time. Originally, this situation was commonplace in billions of years, but in the past, opponents, whether winning or striving for victory, would introduce a descendant of the first-generation ruler as the nominal ruler. Therefore, even if there is a change of dynasty, the person in power is the descendant of the first-generation ruler, and in name, they are still members of the royal family sitting on the throne. Even in so many changes, some people will really verify whether this royal lineage is true or false. But at that time, the rebels of the Demon Clan believed that it was the royal family who had this privilege that allowed them to act recklessly, so they had to overthrow this system and choose leaders recognized by the clan. It was the final say of the clansmen who should be the leaders of the clansmen. After all, the first leader was recommended by the clansmen at that time. But at that time, all ethnic groups were basically in turmoil, or on the way of turmoil. They controlled the unrest within a certain range by relying on the restriction that the first-generation rulers and later generations must be leaders. Otherwise, there would be a total chaos. The concept proposed by the demon tribe made the newly elected rulers of the divine race restless. Therefore, he mobilized other tribes to form an alliance to suppress the demon tribe, citing the mutual aid treaty during the alliance. After the turmoil, the various ethnic groups had almost no fresh troops, so they gathered some people to make up for it. The Divine Clan had no intention of actually fighting, but simply put pressure on the Demon Clan rebels to elect a nominal leader. But the result has angered the Demon Clan. When they felt oppressed, the Divine Alliance did not come to help. Now that they have taken power on their own, the Divine Alliance comes to criticize them. As a result, a young general became increasingly angry in the middle of the night and led his men to attack a nearby Allied camp. As a result, the Allies saw that they were truly defeated and immediately abandoned their camp to flee. Upon receiving the news, other demon tribes immediately sent troops to pursue, and the Allied forces were completely defeated. But what happened next completely became a factor of hostility between the gods and demons for the next few 100 million years. A group of demon soldiers chased after a group of divine soldiers and, out of some unknown mentality, swallowed them all alive. As a result, the demonic soldiers discovered that they could generate spiritual power and be refined and absorbed. This discovery made the tumultuous demon race red-eyed. They had already disregarded their previous agreement and surrounded the Allied soldiers, devouring them one by one. Finally, tens of thousands of Allied forces, except for a few who escaped, were all swallowed alive by the demon soldiers. At this point, the word demon was born, and the demon race became the mortal enemy of all spirits and tribes. The demon clan saw such a simple situation and all the tribes were defeated, so they decided not to stop and sent troops to attack other tribes. However, although each tribe doesn't have much breath, they can still resist one or two, and even counterattack against the demons who come from afar. So, after countless years of repeated conflicts, neither side could do anything about it. And back then, the demon lord who had been overthrown fell to the scene, and his son inherited the throne of the demon lord. When the rebels arrived at the capital of the demon tribe, he brought his family, confidants, ministers, and some loyal people to seek help from the divine race. When the divine race saw that they had no hope of returning to the demon tribe, they freed up a small world without anyone to live in and divided half of it for them to live in, naming it Gumod. Then, send some troops to be stationed and managed in the name of protecting them, and allocate a certain amount of materials and money every year to support their construction. The rebels of the demon tribe elected a new ruler of the demon tribe, who led the demon tribe to stabilize their position at that time, making it impossible for the divine alliance, despite having a large number of people, to take over the demon tribe in one go, resulting in a stalemate and ultimately forming a standoff between the two sides. After the ruler's death, his eldest son succeeded him to the throne. However, due to his desire to negotiate with the gods and end the standoff, he was opposed by his younger brother and expelled from the throne. He had to run to the divine race to seek refuge. The Protoss left the remaining half of the demonic land and left some buffer zones for them to live in. In order to distinguish the previous demonic people, they are referred to as the pre-demonic people, and the leader of this group of demonic people is called the Demon Lord, order a group to be called the later Demon Men, and the leader to be called the Demon King. The confrontation between gods and demons lasted for thousands of years, and the various tribes of the Divine Alliance have regained their strength through years of development. However, due to limited space, the resources of the demon tribe began to be scarce. At this point, the first person of divine divination in the divine race. The Master of Divine Divination. After divination, it was found that the probability of annihilating demons had reached 90%. Therefore, all races concentrated their forces and began to attack the demon race. At the beginning, as predicted by the Master of Divination, the demon race retreated step by step and was unable to parry. It depends on the main force, who will be surrounded and defeated by the various tribes of the Divine Alliance. The main forces of the demonic army suddenly break through towards the entrance of the dragon realm. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to break into the dragon realm first, and the demon dragon clan within the dragon clan suddenly betrayed and led the main force of the demon clan all the way to the dragon tail gate. The dragon tail mouth of the dragon clan is a magical one-way passage that can only enter and exit, while the exit is tens of thousands of miles away from the nearest demon world city. Those demon armies and dragons fought each other and fled back to the demon realm, guarding every corner of the demon realm. And the dragon clan suffered heavy casualties and suffered significant damage to their vitality. The prophet, a master of divination and calculation, came to the dragon clan and saw the devastation there. He sat on the ground and said, "Destroyer of demons, dragon," before sitting down. Due to the rebellion of the demon dragon clan, after the war ended, many demon dragons who were still in the dragon realm were captured and killed. Those with more than half of the lineage of the demon dragon clan were also unable to escape death. And those with less than half bloodline, after discussion, were finally sent to the demon dwelling place of the divine race. At that time, it was said that the dragon king had fallen, and he had previously married a woman from the demon dragon tribe, so all of his sons were excluded from the inheritance of the dragon king's throne. In the end, the current dragon lord, the nephew of the former dragon lord, was elevated to the throne due to his mother being an ordinary member of the divine dragon clan. At that time, Long Jun had already married a woman from the demon dragon tribe, who had been laid off by Long Jun. His 5 sons were also given over. Later, he married a woman from the sea tribe of the divine dragon tribe and gave birth to the current crown prince and second prince. Later, she adopted several concubines and gave birth to more than 10 sons. At present, the most favored prince is the fourth prince, and his mother, the lake consort, is the most favored by the dragon lord. So the crown prince lived trembling every day, and as the son of the crown prince, with the example of the previous brothers, Jiang Jian was even more cautious. Jiang Lu doesn't have a good impression of Jiang Shi like others do. Because he clearly felt that Jiang Yi was deliberately managing his image. However, these seem to have nothing to do with the river flow. As for being born into an imperial family, Jiang Lu only lamented for Jiang Yi's involuntary actions. Feilai Hengdan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, however, Jiang Lu quickly put Jiang Yan's matter behind him. After all, the patients who came to see him every day were diverse, and without stories or accidents, they would not come to the hospital. Fortunately, the group of people who come to the medical clinic for treatment is relatively fixed, not just students, but also teachers and family members. Basically, except for unreasonable lords like Princess Qianni who come to cause trouble, ordinary people are not very likely to cause trouble, which is much better than outside the medical clinic. In addition to filling out registration forms for triage, some designated guidance teachers at medical institutions occasionally bring interns to visit, allowing them to write prescription notes, organize medical records, and sometimes help buy groceries, pick up children, and take care of the elderly. This can also be considered as an opportunity for interns like Jiang Lu to gain practical experience. However, after completing a year of internship at Jiang Lu will also set aside time to watch the school's cultural performances and go out to eat and drink with Kong Jian and others during his days. Of course, as a minor, including interns like Kong Jian, he is prohibited from drinking alcohol and usually drinks some sweet spring water and spiritual juice. This is naturally because Jiang Lu has become familiar with the operating procedures of the hospital, and at the same time, 2 new batches of interns have been added one after another. Every 6 months. When these interns first arrived, they were just as ignorant as Jiang Lu who had just entered the hospital. The only difference was that they were all older than Jiang Lu. However, entering the mountain gate first is more important, so these new interns naturally have to listen to the teachings of senior students like Jiang Lu and take the initiative to undertake the originally heaviest tasks. Jiang Lu thought about working for another 8 or 9 years, and after participating in the new student qualification selection competition, he would leave the medical clinic to travel to the Dragon Realm. At that time, he would figure out the regional conditions and distribution of medicinal herbs. This way, he would spend hundreds of years traveling to the Dragon Realm, and his graduation thesis would be settled. With a goal in mind, he instinctively collects some common disease medical records and books related to medicinal herbs for future use. But beautiful aspirations are always full of obstacles. On that day, it was Jiang Lu's turn to take a day off. He came out of the school library and the sky was already dim. He thought that since he started interning in the duty dormitory of the medical clinic, he had not returned to his original dormitory for a while. Seeing that there was nothing else to do, he walked towards the student dormitory area. As the river flows, it reminisces about past events, including the images of He Sisi, Wei Qi, Jiang Fuxiu, and others. Just as Jiang Lu was lost in thought, suddenly a panicked person ran towards him and collided with him. Jiang Lu and the other person both fell to the ground at the same time. Jiang Lu sat up and looked at the other person, who was also looking at Jiang Lu in panic. Senior sister. Jiang Lu was surprised to find that the other person was actually Jiang Mei. He was usually not surprised when he saw Jiang Mei, but today his face was pale and he clearly had a bit of a restless expression. Are you okay? Why are you running so fast? Jiang Lu asked. Oh. It's okay. Jiang Mei looked at the back and rubbed his knees, saying nervously, I'm going to the school auditorium to rehearse a program. Just as I passed by the avenue, I felt like someone was following me from behind. When it got dark, I felt a little nervous and ran up. I didn't pay close attention to the road and bumped into you. Jiang Lu quickly asked, "Senior sister, one person at night really needs to pay attention to safety. Do you want me to escort you to the auditorium?" Jiang Mei quickly waved his hand and said, "No need, this is already out of the avenue. The school square is just ahead, and there are too many people, so naturally it's okay. Alright, I'm going to rehearse, so I won't say anything to you. Goodbye." Jiang Mei stood up in a panic, ignoring the fallen river, and flew towards the crowded area of the school square. Jiang Lu rubbed and bumped the area he hit, and was about to get up when he found a cloth bag where Jiang Mei had just fallen. He didn't know if it was Jiang Mei who fell just now or someone else, so he took the cloth bag over and sat on the ground to open it and see what was inside. Opening the cloth bag, there is an egg inside, specifically a dragon egg. When studying medicine in Jianglu, I saw pictures of dragon eggs, and at the clinic where I interned, I also saw dragon egg specimens. So he was certain that what was in this bag was a dragon egg. I saw this dragon egg, which is all jade white with some textures and patterns on it, and emits waves of spiritual power. Ha! How could there be a dragon egg here? Shouldn't it be in the school's childcare department? Before Jiang Lu could figure out what was going on, he heard someone running towards him from a distance. "The person is there, stop it quickly, don't let them run away," a voice shouted. Before Jiang Lu could react, several people in uniforms suddenly appeared in front of him. "We are from the campus inspection department, put down the eggs in our hands and walk with us obediently," the leader shouted at the river. "I just picked up this egg here." Before Jiang Lu could defend themselves, the group of people rushed forward and tied the divine rope tightly, then picked up the cloth bag containing the egg and took Jiang Lu away from the spot. Not long after, in the interrogation room of the inspection department, Jiang Lu had been hung upside down on the scaffold, with numerous injuries on his body. The team members were drinking tea and tapping on sweet melon seeds, chatting and laughing. A fat man who had just finished whipping the river with a whip gasped for breath and threw the whip away. As soon as he took off his coat, he grabbed the teacup on the table and took a few gulps. "Shuang, it's been a long time since I've been exercising like this. Sweating makes me feel comfortable all over. Hee, fortunately that kid has a tough mouth, otherwise everyone would be able to get started in any round." A triangular eye beside him agreed. The fat man suddenly shouted towards the door, "Thin guy, how are the results of the egg texture test?" At this moment, a skinny middle-aged man walked in and said, "Captain, preliminary testing shows that the boy and egg have a matching rate of over 90%. Humph, I thought that kid was so tough because he wasn't the culprit. I didn't expect he was afraid of death," the chubby man said disdainfully. "Who doesn't know, according to the laws of our dragon clan, minors are not allowed to have children. If you want to have children, you have to pay for your life. This kid is delicate and tender, and you can tell at first glance that he is a mischievous spirit that harms the little girl." The triangular eyes also leaned in and said, "However, the director just sent a message, asking us not to beat that kid too hard." A group of senior executives from the school and several curators from the medical center have all pleaded with the director. The skinny man glanced at the fat man and whispered, The county magistrate is better than the current one. It's not up to me to call a spade a spade. Since he can make so many senior officials intercede with him, he must be a dandy. Just now, we beat him lightly," the fat man said, grabbing another fruit and biting it. "Captain, are you going to stop fighting?" The triangular eyes were full of laughter. "Anyway, this kid is the culprit, he'll have to go home sooner or later. Since I have just heard the opinions of the senior management and director of the school, if I take action again, I will be passed on by someone with intentions. In the future, I'm afraid I won't be able to sit still, so let's stop it. As for whether to return home or not, if he has a deep background, he may not die." The fat man finished speaking, threw away the fruit pit, clapped his hands, and walked out. The next morning, in the school principal's conference room, except for the main seat, there were seats on both sides of the school's senior management and medical center, such as Haiying and Kaijima. You have just seen the egg pattern detection results from the inspection department, and the match with Jianglu is over 90%. Although I also believe that Jianglu wouldn't do such a thing, the fact is before us, we have to believe it. Vice President Wu Tingli said. Principal Wu, the results of the egg grain test are not accurate, especially since we are an aristocratic school with many students of the same ethnic group as Jianglu. It is difficult to convince Jianglu that relying solely on the egg grain test would result in a death penalty. Unless tissue biological testing is used to determine whether Jianglu is truly the father of eggs, Kaijima said passionately. If it were a small matter, I wouldn't have any objections to punishing the river. But now that life is at stake, I don't agree with such hasty conclusions. After all, the principal is currently in seclusion for crossing the calamity. Although Principal Wu is currently working on behalf of the principal, I don't think it's appropriate to make such a decision. Vice Principal Qian also retorted. The principal is now in seclusion, and I don't want her to be stimulated again. I heard about the incident in Zumishan a few times ago, which almost caused the principal's martial arts to backfire. Now there is another underage childbirth incident, and to let the principal know, there hasn't been any change yet. I was grateful to the principal for being the vice principal of Tianlai College. She entrusted school affairs to me before seclusion, but I made her suffer the pain of losing many students and teachers. Now, this underage childbirth case, I don't want to make her sad again. Humph, that sounds good. Thinking about the principal everywhere is clearly reversing black and white. Are you doing this to make the school irreparable? Do you know who Jianglu's father is? Vice Principal Ji also spoke out to refute Wu Tingli. I just know who Jianglu's father is, which is why I made this decision. According to the Dragon Clan law, if a minor gives birth to a child, ordinary people have to exchange one life for another, but there is an exception, that is, if the noble is demoted, the royal family is exempt. To put it bluntly, if it is a minor student of the royal family giving birth to a child, although it can be exempted from death, it will have a significant impact on the royal family and may not be easy to end, while if the noble is demoted, although it can be exempted from death and life, it will be stripped of the dragon clan identity, driven out of the dragon realm, and let it live and die on its own. Other nobles may encounter it, and their lives will be ruined, but the river flow is different. His father works in front of the Dragon Lord, which is better. Tianlong Jun was in a good mood, and his father came forward to help him seek a pardon, which would restore his Dragon Clan identity. Moreover, Jianglu is only in his 20s now, and the thunder calamity at the age of 500 is still far away. He should not be affected if he stays outside for decades or even hundreds of years. Especially now, he has already completed the theoretical knowledge that others need to learn for 200 years, which is much faster than others. Even if there was no amnesty in the middle, he could still catch up with the amnesty of the Dragon Clan's 500th anniversary celebration before the Thunder disaster. Currently, the punishment for giving birth to minors in the Dragon Clan is too strict, which has caused widespread discussion, and revision is also the trend. So, for now, we can only let Jianglu bear the blame, regardless of whether he is the culprit or not. Otherwise, if other ordinary students were replaced, they would only be able to take the lead and have no chance of survival. And the longer this incident is handled, the greater the impact. Once public opinion arises, any consequences may occur. Wu Tingli slowly expressed his thoughts. After listening to Wu Tingli's words, there was silence in the conference room, followed by whispers of discussion. Finally, the 5 vice principals voted, and Wu's proposal was passed 3.2. Wu Tingli saw that his proposal had been approved and looked at Kaijima and others below at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com with an angry expression. He sighed and said, I swear here that when Jianglu is pardoned and comes back, I will definitely compensate him 10 times. Of course, before Jianglu is officially exiled, he will not make things difficult for him at school again. He paused and said, as for today's discussion, I hope everyone will keep it confidential. Jiang Lu was released from the inspection department and taken back to the medical clinic for treatment by Kai Jima. Looking at the river, Kai Jima could only sigh. After Jiang Lu's injuries were basically healed, he was informed that he had given birth to a child under the age of minors. According to the Dragon Clan law, he was sentenced to death for this crime, but considering his noble status, he was stripped of his Dragon Clan identity and expelled from the Dragon Realm. The time is set to be 1 month later. And that egg was also given to him. Jiang Lu went to find Kai Jima, but Kai Jima did not see him under the pretext of seclusion. He only gave him some Dragon Ball coins, medicinal herbs, and pills to use on his body. Vice Principals Qian, Ji, and even Wu Tingli brought some Dragon Ball coins and clothing. Jiang Lu still couldn't believe it. He just picked up an egg and almost lost his life, about to be expelled from the Dragon Clan. Jiang Lu wanted to find a place to appeal, but no one accepted it. Go find Vice Principal Ji and others, but they all avoid each other. Helplessly, Jiang Lu thought of Aunt Cui. Although Jiang Lu's case has not been made public, Aunt Cui from the Ministry of Conservation has already learned about it from her colleagues, and even through analysis, she can basically determine why Jiang Lu was convicted so quickly. She comforted Jiang Lu and said, through egg texture testing, it is indeed possible to quickly confirm whether there is a genetic relationship between the dragon egg and you, but the range of references is very large and it may be highly matched with the eggs laid by your fellow race. Therefore, to prove your innocence, you can break the egg and compare it with your biological tissue. However, in this case, the egg is basically useless. Do I still keep this egg for the Chinese New Year? Jiang Lu said gloomily.